I always like to hear about the old timers. Never missed a chance to do so. You can't help but compare yourself against the old timers. Can't help but wonder how they'd operated these times.
Top Game with your host, Sammy Castro. Episode 26. Master Sergeant Tom Dean, retired, a.k.a. the Silver Fox, a.k.a. El Bigote. Tom Dean pulled me into his office one morning in San Angelo, Texas, back in 2002 to prepare me for the role of being a sergeant in the Fleet Marine Force. That lesson never left me and is one I carry to this day to hand to the junior Marines within my personal maximum effective range. Upon retirement, he continued to serve in various roles as an overpaid contractor supporting Marines deployed across the globe. He's not a native Texan, but you'd be hard-pressed to convince him otherwise. If after listening to this interview you find yourself in San Angelo, do yourself the favor of seeking him out to shake his hand and thank him for agreeing to sit down and press record. Originally recorded back in 2018, I had the hardest time with the audio due to the birds chirping on his porch. Lesson learned, an ounce of prevention is worth a ton of cure when it comes to audio engineering. You win some, you lose some. Admin note, I closed out the Bonfire t-shirt campaign with 10 units sold and shipped. Thanks for that. When they arrive in your mailbox, hit me up with an appropriate picture of you in your Top Game gear, and I'll post it up on social media using the hashtag #TellMeWhoYouWalk Finally, I recently updated the Patreon tiers with several of the benefits associated with each. More to follow on that in future episodes. Suffice to say, if you're looking to support, Patreon is the easiest way to do so. Disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed on Top Game are those of the producers or the guests appearing on the program and do not reflect the views and opinions of the United States Marine Corps or the Department of Defense. Thanks for tuning in.
Now, this is what, a blog?
So it's called a podcast.
Podcast, that's it.
So once the
watch yourself now. All my shit's falling apart. Gets thrown out. And when it comes through, it ends up over there.
one of the I guess I want to say it was 2003, 2004 time frame. iPods started to become really big.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the, I guess, new media forms that started to become popular was these internet radio shows. You know, two guys sit down with a microphone, or one guy just sits down and just goes over the news, or, you know, I mean,
I've heard of different, podcasts. I've never listened to one, but
so
how do you find out about it? So I'm Joe Blow, and how do I know there's a podcast about whatever? Or so use it like YouTube?
Yeah, so there's a podcast app. You have an iPhone?
No.
So you can find them on the web. There's, any number of applications or services that you can subscribe to in order to get to them. The one that I've kind of recommended and populated to first for the Android user crowd has been Stitcher, which is but there's other ones. I'm still kind of learning on that side, but on the Apple side, it's really easy because there's a podcast app, and that.
What's there to it? You got recorded audio and that's it, right?
You record the audio, but then you've got I've learned that dedicated web hosting for the podcast makes it a little easier. So I pay a fee, upload the audio, they host it.
Oh, okay.
And then archive it, and everything that goes into data storage and archival and releasing it through what they call RSS feed, really simple subscription feed. So as long as anybody's got the link, they can set up any number of ways in which they can get the audio automatically downloaded to them once I release a new episode.
Oh, okay. So you got to be. So I'm Joe Blow, and I want to subscribe to this podcast. I have to get a subscription?
No, you don't. It's not a paid subscription. You just using whichever platform you decided to leverage to get.
As long as you got an RSS feed.
Yep.
Yeah.
So an RSS feed reader would work. But yeah. So whenever you're ready, we can.
So now why do I wear these?
In order to check your levels, you'll be able to hear how you sound.
I'm probably not gonna like how I sound. That don't feel right. Are these left and right?
Yep.
A row.
So here I sit with the legendary Tom Dean, Master Sergeant, retired.
Yep. I don't know about the legendary part.
So, I mean, I guess that's your take at humility, but pretty much all the Marines that came through when I was coming through, all the Marines that went before me within the last 2-3 years prior to me going through Goodfellow, the Marines that came after me knew about this Master Sergeant out in San Angelo, Texas, that had this really big mustache.
As a Master Sergeant?
Yeah, you were a Master Sergeant at the time.
Yeah, maybe. I kind of pushed the ranks for several years on that.
So in episode 5, I sit down with a young SST team lead by the name of Sergeant Moreno, and I told him the story of how you called me into your office. Not necessarily to chew me out, but to kind of shake the cobwebs loose as you
prepared you for sergeant,
as you phrased it, because there was a war going on. I was coming from the schoolhouse, had never been to the fleet before, and I was going to be checking in at 2nd Radio Battalion as a sergeant. And to kind of summarize it, basically said that a sergeant in the fleet, in case I wasn't aware, needs to be fire breathing, shit stomping, ass kicking, name taking, and that there was going to be a lot of responsibility thrust upon my shoulders.
Yeah, especially because you've been sitting in Monterey for a while,
about 3 years.
Yeah,
and that you wanted to make sure I was ready for it.
Yeah, it's because I saw firsthand the young Marines that would come out of Monterey, short stint at Goodfellow, and were showing up as sergeants and literally weren't equipped to be, a senior NCO. Especially if they were on SSTs or any kind of deployment where they've got to work directly with the rest of the folks in the Marine Corps. And those guys, Sergeant in one of the grunt battalions, he's kind of made his bones already. So it was important for our guys, the radio battalion guys, to be able to, go head to head with them. Something I learned from an old CO, Dwayne Whitmer, a long time ago. I think we were in Spain. We did like 4 tours together. We had a grunt company there, like Marine Barracks. And we'd always compete with one another. And his big thing was to out-grunt the grunt. And that's something I always took away with, how I did things. From the start of the radio reconnaissance program and then dealing directly with guys at battalion or force recon. You just had to do everything they did, and if possible, do it better. And that attitude helped us. I'll never forget the first time a bunch of them, we did a waterborne landing and then an ungodly hump through the swamps of June in prep for the MSPF was put together. But long story short, we showed up with these ridiculously large packs, as we do. They were looking at us like we were crazy. They, of course, were outfitted very light. But we hit the beach and then moved inland for 5 hours, I want to say. But we kept pace with them. And from then on out, they thought we were not half as bad as what they were expecting. And then on deployment, we continued to do the same thing. Nobody ever pissed and moaned about anything. We just sucked it up and moved on. So I guess my point is, I saw a lot of young Marines coming out of Goodfellow who had spent most of their time in Monterey, and they were sergeants, and they just weren't prepared to deal one-on-one with a sergeant in one of the grunt battalions.
So let's talk about those early days in the radio reconnaissance program, because, either you were there at the very inception?
Right after the very beginning, yeah.
What was that like? A new capability like that coming online, and you're taking these nerds out of Radbin and you're trying to turn them into these I mean,
we were
jack of all trades.
We were the redheaded stepchildren to everybody. That was the disheartening part. Is there were certainly plenty of folks within the community, within the radio battalion, 2nd Radio Battalion, that did not believe in the concept. And there were all sorts of guys in the reconnaissance battalions and force recon companies that weren't, very hip to it either. So we were constantly, our 03 brothers having to prove to them that we could do anything and everything they could do, and then maintaining a humble spirit, if you will, back at the battalions. And that was something I always beat my guys up on. I never wanted them to, think that they were special or buy into the whole special,
Right.
That's when Marsoc first came on, I thought, oh, shit, there we go. We're going to be another goddamn special something or other. But, I mean, I can see now, having worked with them a bit since I've retired, I see where their place is and what they do, and those guys do a fantastic job. I wish all of our guys could get the schooling they get, but that'll never happen.
Well, it just comes from funding.
Yeah. But going back to that, we were not liked by a lot of folks. You had to earn, that respect. And it really kind of warmed my heart here back in 06 or 07. I went over to Fallujah as a contractor, and myself and Jim Stansbury were walking out of the chow hall, and there's a couple guys with their chest wear on. And we went walking by, and one of the guys was a master sergeant gunny, and he points at me and goes, I bet you he was a recon Marine. I thought, oh, shit. Now, why would he think of that? Old, gray, dilapidated. And I just laughed. I said, I was radio recon back in the day. Oh, goddamn, those guys are fantastic. Those guys, man, and they just could not say enough good things about them. So that, I felt good. I mean, I was like, finally, they got the recognition and the respect from their peers across the aisle. So that was kind of cool. There was all sorts of weird stuff on that particular trip to Fallujah. I kept running into old guys, or not old guys, but guys I knew on float, and I knew them as I was a staff sergeant or gunny. They were young sergeants, and hell, now they were CW04s and master gunnies and sergeant majors. And again, none of them, no singers. They were LAV guys and grunts and weapons platoon folks. It was just, kind of neat. Staying in the game.
Right. So how hard was it for you to transition over from being active duty into the contractor realm? Was that just a smooth transition, or did it take some getting used to?
It was stupid smooth. When the 9 list came out the spring of 03, war was getting ready to kick off. I knew I wasn't going to be on the due to past transgressions. There was a certain master sergeant that was on it, and that was my calling to get the fuck out. Okay. And it really, a blessing in disguise. I never would have, timing-wise, fallen into what I did as a contractor and do the work I did as a contractor had I picked up master gunny, because my whole goal was to go back to 2nd Radio Battalion as the ops chief and work as a ops chief, not as a second-class first sergeant, sergeant major, actually run operations in the battalion. So I would have done that, and I would have missed an opportunity. But what was cool about it is a buddy of mine, and this goes back to the start of the the radio recon days. A buddy of mine I was in A school with, and then later on we were in, what do they call that course? CY 200. It was a gaggle up at the fort. Donnie Evelyn. So he was an Army guy, Army Special Forces guy. And we would bump into each other all throughout our careers. And it was cool because at the end of our careers, he showed up here at Goodfellas, the Senior Enlisted at the Mardet, and he was the sergeant major of the Army Battalion here. And he knew I was going to punch, and they were just entertaining the idea of taking contractors to work on the Army's analyst course and actually be on the podium. I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. He says, look, I want you to do this. He says, my guys can't act like you do because they're in uniform, but you be you, and I want that injected into the course. I'm like, okay.
Did he know what he was asking for?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, wait till they get a load of me. And now it actually ended up being really, really fun on account of, I got by with murder. I mean, it was something. But to this day, I'll be at the commissary on base, and I'll run into a soldier who's an SFC now or a master sergeant, and they'll be like, "Hey, Top Team, you remember me? You pinned me." Oh, that was a big thing when they had 4 blocks of instruction. I taught the first block, so I was their introduction to something outside of their boot camp. And then at the end of their course, they get pinned, like other gay shit that some of the other services do. But anyhow, it was a big deal for them to pick.
So like their MOS qualification?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they wear some kind of goofy little insignia. I can't remember what it is. And usually they pick the first sergeant or,
right,
somebody they've been slacking up to. Well, I started having students pick me, and the Army Command did not dig that at all.
They didn't.
Yeah, they were.
Small jarheads.
Who's this jarhead with the big ass mustache?
Imprinted on our young soldiers.
So I was honored to do that. It was fun, and then all the game plan all along was to get sucked back into the Marine side of the house when the opening occurred, and it did in 06. Went to work for Rod Carter on the TCAC program. I was associated with TCAC as a gunny here when they first put it into the course. It was a follow-on block of instruction for the guys and gals going through A&R that were destined for radio battalion. And then even when I was up at SysCom as the RREP project officer, I still kind of stuck my nose in on the TCAC stuff. I'd get questions from one of the captains that was running it, just, how does this work? How should an analyst do this kind of thing? But, so long story short, I did that, and then Rod ended up retiring a little bit earlier than expected due to health reasons, and I took over the team in January of 07, and that was nothing but a positive. It was great, because I'd be at each one of the battalions twice a year, training, doing new equipment training. Deployed several times to Iraq. One of our teams we sent out to Afghanistan. So it was always fun staying technically proficient. It was quite a hop from when I came down here as a senior enlisted from second radio, and how the technology changed between, say, 01 and 06, 07.
Right.
So I was, on the midwatch with those analysts in Fallujah, Ramadi, and Al-Assad, learning how, second to second to second. It's just, you're using just new toys to
new tools.
Yeah, and a little bit of methodology, change. But I mean, here's a bad guy. Let's find him. Let's kill him and break his shit. And the other big part of that, which was taking care of our guys. So
a lot of times I've asked some of the previous guests, if not for the Marines, where would you be? But if not for SIGINT, what OCCFLD do you think would have been more to your liking?
I probably would have been a grunt. It's funny. So there I was in college, 1975, 76, and it was all Vietnam vets I was in school with. It was almost all non-vets from all the services. And there's an old buddy of mine to this day I stay in touch with, Bobby Mendlick. He was a jarhead. He was a Marine. And we became buddies, and he kind of took me under his wing. And then late 77, when we had a real bad winter, I thought, hell with this, I'm getting out of town. And I thought with 2 years of education, I could be a Navy pilot. I flew privately with my dad, learned how to fly as a kid. So I went to a recruiter. He just laughed, said, "No, son, get the hell out of here. You got to have a college degree." I was heartbroken. And so I went walking out of there, and this big old gunny sticks his head out of his office. "Hey, boy, you know about being a Marine?" I'm like, "No, my buddy Bob was a jarhead." He had some really, out of all the stories all these guys would tell, he had the best. Your typical, jarhead stuff that comes up that we can't talk or write about. But, stupid me, a couple years of school, I could have had guarantees or how they write it in your contract.
Contract PFC.
Yeah, all that shit. I could have had all. But I was like, my only question was, how fast can you get me to San Diego? And it was like eight days later, there I was with a ass full of penicillin watching airplanes take off, asking myself, what did I do? So total lark, fell into this. I was chosen to go to 8th and I. And then this came up.
Is it because you were screened there at the MCRD?
Yeah, two guys in our company, well, myself and another guy, were screened to go to 8th and I. And I was so impressed because we had just had 8th and I in the President's Zone. That's when General Wilson was a commandant. Put on a performance there at MSgt San Diego. I was like, oh, that's just cool shit. So I was shooting the shit with my junior drill instructor one evening. I said, look, this is really an honor to do this, and blah, blah, blah. Or there's this thing, this SIGINT field, which I didn't know anything. He says, look, unless you like shining your boots all the time and blah, blah, blah. He goes, go learn a technical trade. I'm like, yeah, good. So that's, happened into that. And I was fortunate. I was always in the wrong place at the right time, I guess, throughout my career. Things worked out. I always push back. If I was right on something, or at least if I thought I was right, I typically wouldn't get in or let in, I should say. Kind of had a reputation for taking care of my guys at whatever cost to myself, but it all worked out in the end. I do anything for them, and I like to think they do the same for me. So,
well, I can attest to the manner in which your name is spoken, even amongst my peer group at the Master Sergeant, Master Guns level. There's several individuals that we can kind of look to as that example to emulate. I was told by a gunnery sergeant in Monterey that it was kind of an open threat, not just to me directly, but to the group. There was that no matter where we go in the Marine Corps, he'd be there waiting for us.
Yeah.
And what he meant by that was not him physically, but someone just like him, a keeper at the gates, someone that was going to remind us of the type of organization that we joined and what was required of us in order to be successful, competitive, and just how to keep our honor clean. And you were that for quite a few of us here at the schoolhouse. So when I later got orders back to San Angelo, I was initially bothered by that because I saw that as being put on the bench after 5 years at Radio Battalion. But when I got here and I saw the impact that you can have off, a whole section, years worth of throughput at the schoolhouse, I changed my tune. But kind of rewinding back a little bit, what was the discussion amongst, I guess, the RP as you guys were starting to put together your TCPs, your SOPs, like just the basic fundamentals of getting your shit together to get out the hatch and go forward?
A big thing. So when I showed up, it was you had the group of guys that went to force. Vinny Maida, I can't think of all the names. And they came back and they started, our deal. And somehow it kind of morphed into a fuck kind of thing where there was less learning and more messing with, which is an integral part of the messing with it because it's just to push a young fella out of their comfort zone. I made it through myself and, gosh darn, what's his name? He went on to be a lieutenant in the Grunts. I can't think of his name. He was involved in a range accident back in the late 90s. I can't think. It doesn't matter. But as soon as I made it through the RIP, which a lot of folks didn't, I was immediately assigned to a team and started the workup and took off. Then I did another float and another, and it was before I took off on my last one with 2-6. Mark Roush and I at that time, and God rest his soul, Mark pisses me off every time I think about it. He passed here a few years ago to a goofy thing growing in his grave from probably a visit to Kuwait, they said. Anyhow, we wanted to make it a more professional course, whereas it was a hands-off thing. And instead of screwing with people trying to get them to quit, we were pushing people, but trying to get them to, to stay in and see what the benefits would be. So we basically designed a thing up front where we had a screening first. It was just to see, do you have the metal and the mental capacity to stick with it, not quit, because you can't have everybody quit. You can't be out on patrol, miserable, and just have somebody throwing a towel. You can't do it.
Right.
So we came up with a course, and we used to ran it on Verona Loop. It was like a 3-day deal where basically you were given a set of coordinates and go to this spot. You got X amount of time to get there. We're not going to tell you how much time that is, but don't be dicking off. So I want to say it had 13 legs. And literally they'd bop, bop, bop to each spot. And we'd be waiting for them, kind of like, oh, you're a kid, keep going. Here's some chow. But it was go, 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 go. And then if they made it to that final little get-go, there was a little E&E we'd do. And they thought they were still going to be getting hosed with on day 3 or early morning of day 3, when in fact we loaded up, went back to battalion. Those guys who made it through the selection course then would go on to get, I think it was like 4 or 6 weeks of training. This is how you do stuff. I mean, basically all you had to do for the screening was run a PFT with a certain score, which I don't recall, run through the old course twice back to back under a certain time, and then go through this just a long ass patrol really by yourself. So then we trained them, and then once we got them trained and they were still good to go, they were accepted into the platoon, and then they'd start going to their schools. SEER, para. We started getting guys seats in Ranger, ARS, or now BRC. So that all worked out good, and that whole thing too was a big deal because getting guys in the door at ARS, they started to learn or get to know the guys going through the basic reconnaissance course, or that the amphibious reconnaissance school. So anyhow, that was a very successful way to run a RIP course. When I came back as a master sergeant in 98, young Lieutenant James Armagoss was running the platoon. I can't remember who the next Senior Enlisted guy was. I know Greg Lundstrom had just left, but it was back to the screw with Marines. It was bullshit. So I went in, and it was kind of funny. I was sitting at LAX airport, and I ran into Daryl Rector, who was the 3-2nd at the time, and he was asking me what I'm going to do. Am I going to retire? I said, yeah, I'm looking to retire. It's just going to be one of those guys that jump out and make $1 gazillion or something. I'm like, no, I'll come back to 2nd Radio Battalion. I'm like, that shit may have already sailed. No. Radio Recon's jacked up. I'd like you to come down and put it back the way it used to be. And I bid on it like a douche. But so I had a little bit of clout. Colonel Leidecker said, look, you got the range, don't kill anybody. So when Jim Armagoss said, look, stop, just stop doing what we're doing. I'm going to show you what we're going to do. And I had to rewrite everything because all the shit that Mark and I had put together, SOPs and whatnot, were basically nowhere to be found. So, and then in talking to Colonel Leidecker, what we wanted to do then was to come up with the course, make that the SOP, but make it a battalion order on how you ran that. So, it wasn't the world according to GARP, which is what I saw. Guys that couldn't make it through when Mark and I were running it, for whatever reason, kind of filtered back up into the system. They were gunnies, and all of a sudden they're running radio recon. They didn't make it through when we were running it, and it wasn't anything we did. They just they quit. So but they were playing, wannabe drill instructor type shit. But so long story short, Jim was all about it. A couple of the young Marines were good about it. Guys who just come off float. And the basic line was all the guys like Jimmy Parrish and all them. I say, look, you just came off float, but you're going to run through this selection course because I want you to know what you're going to be putting guys through and the outcome. And then Lieutenant Jim Armagoss, he ran it too. So they hated my guts for a bit, but they all did it and they all understood. And I mentioned Jamie maybe because he got it right away. The other guys pissed him off, but so that's what we started doing. And that first we were discussing earlier, that first course we put together, the fellows that ran it are most of them except for one of them, McKinley. I believe he got out. He's a dentist now. But you got Kyle Cornett. He's master gunny out of MARSOC. Joe Farina's a major. The last time I saw him, he was at MARSOC. He was headed to, I think, Little Creek. Eric Soder was a captain at MARSOC. Kasurka was a captain. I think he was just coming to second rate battalion again. I think that was it. That goes further was one more body. But it tickles me to see those guys they've gone on to do really well, and are making their impact in the Marine Corps now. You know, Kyle's coming down here as a senior enlisted this summer, which ought to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be this generation's top dean.
Yeah, God.
so hopefully you prepared him well.
Yeah. Well, see, he's married now and got a kid or two.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah. So I sat down with him recently, and we talked for almost a good 3 hours and some change. Really solid guy. I never got a chance to meet him beforehand. Just through reputation and friend of a friend kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
This community being as small as it is.
Oh yeah.
Your reputation precedes you, good, bad, or indifferent, and good, bad, and ugly, I should say. And he's one of those guys that I always heard great things about, and having a chance to meet him face to face and get to know him a little better. I think that he made the right choice. He's coming in with I would say the right focus and attitude and energy that is going to have a positive impact on the throughput coming out of Goodfellow.
A big thing here, in that position, you can really be effective, and by that I mean you can really screw the Air Force into doing what you need them to do for your Marines. And if you can do that on a combined front, that's where Donnie, even he was our major over there at the Army battalion. And Bob, I can't remember his name. I'm going to feel bad now. God damn it. His son's a gunny. He's a linguist. Gunny or Master Sergeant? Christ. Something with an H. Oh, fuck. Damn it.
Hills Camp.
Huh?
Hills Camp.
No. Like Hampton, Haskell, fuck. Anyhow, the three of us were all like-minded. So we would go to these meetings. And, because at the time, the Air Force would get to like a new barracks and the Marines were still living in some shithole. And
yep.
Constantly fighting for a new barracks. I mean, and we were the last ones on that totem pole. And it was shortly after I retired that.
Isn't that by design, though?
What?
That we're the last ones on the totem pole?
Yeah. But if you're the squeaky wheel and you say embarrassing things to your counterparts in blue in front of a lot of other people, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah, so the Marines now have their own barracks, and their headquarters is in the first deck of the barracks and everything, so I like to think I had a little bit of impact on where that funding came from way back when.
Yeah, they got decent digs now. I haven't been in the headquarters building. This trip, the last trip, I stopped in there to see some guys and whatnot. And I mean, it's completely night and day compared to when you talked to me and Kudak, in your office. We were in those trailers right there by Carswell Fieldhouse.
Yeah, we were juggling. We had the fire dogs in one section and the SIGINT guys in another section and the squints in another section. It was a mess. It was, from a management point of view, it wasn't very good. It just made me think of something. I can't remember. Oh, that's what it was, the fire dogs. That's another thing that Kyle will have to figure out is when I got here, you had the fire dogs, instructors and students, and you had the SIGINT guys and the squints that we kind of but it was like three different groups of people that didn't know each other.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that at all. So I said, that's it, we're having a staff call. And I naturally had to have it in the local saloon, an old watering hole that I've been going to forever.
Which one is that?
Lone Wolf.
Yeah, I figured that's what you were going to call out.
So having staff calls like, what? We're in a bar? What? Who? And I kind of read them all the riot act. I said, look, you're all fucking Marines. That's it. Bottom line, you're all Marines. And y'all talk shit about each other, and you don't know each other.
Like schoolgirls.
You ain't got the right to talk shit about each other.
Right.
So I made them sit down across the table from one another, get out of their little cliques, and it's just the old break bread kind of thing. Said, we're killing pitchers of beer. It wasn't long before, it's like, oh, okay, so that guy's okay. That guy's still a douchebag. But, and they started a conversation, and I'm really proud of the way the debt handled itself. And then, so you figure I showed up here, was it July of 01? September 11th happens. First thing I'm doing is I'm calling Sean McBride at 2nd Radio Battalion, who was the OPSO then. I said, can you put a by name or I can't be sitting here babysitting a bunch of young Marines while, shit's hitting the fan. And he just laughed. He said, if you were a linguist, maybe you'd have a leg to stand on, but you're not. So, see you later. But, so September 11th happens. All the other services, this is why I say the Army had already had their ball, but the Navy and the Air Force canceled their balls. And the CO here, Jesse, he's like, oh, what do you think we can? I said, no, fuck no, we're not canceling our ball.
Cancel the ball?
Yeah. But, well, they were, terrorists. And, it was a weird time, and nobody knew what was going to happen next.
We have balls in combat zones.
I know it, exactly.
We have balls on ship.
I've had several balls in the well deck of a ship. Here's your piece of cake, shut the fuck up, go back and watch.
Did him already pound cake?
Yeah. So I said, no, we're not going to. And we'd already had it set up. We were going to have it. Well, it was the Holiday Inn. I can't remember what it's called now, down by the river. I said, screw that. Okay, if we're going to take security in hand, let's have it in the fire bay at the fire school. And I said, hell, we'll make it like a tactical ball. We'll get a bunch of camo netting. Talk to the guys up in the Marine Det up in Abilene. We'll have oil lamps on the things, and blah, blah, blah. And we'll get our own band. And the guys at the Holiday Inn actually, gosh, I swear to God, I'm getting Alzheimer's. A young gal who was, I can't remember if she was in the Navy. It's Tommy Roebuck's ex-wife. And she just retired as Master Chief out of Honolulu. She was helping her sister out, who managed the Holiday Inn, but they catered it for no extra money. We had the jazz quartet or whatever it was from ASU come up and play. It was a classy thing. And then my goal is always to get rid of the visiting officers from the other services as soon as possible, so that Marines can be Marines.
Right.
It's not the Marine Corps ball; it's the Marines ball. And I went to the north end of town and had a little senorita who ran a pinata shop, made pinatas, and I had her build a pinata that looked like Osama bin Laden. And at the time, we still had a semi-pro hockey team in town, the Outlaws. No, wait, they were the Outlaws, they became the Saints or some shit. Anyhow, I got a signed hockey stick from them. So before the ball, I had this pinata hanging from the rafters up there in the bay, off to a line I had tied off behind the stage. And the stage was just a big flatbed trailer. And Mike Joyner, who was a gunny at the fire school, he had a little band, and they were actually pretty good, so they were going to be the band and stuff. So after, I think, the first set of music, and dancing, I took the mic and I said, Marines, looks like we got a fucking uninvited guest here. And I released the rope, down drops the pinata in full regalia, and I grabbed the hockey stick under the stage. I said, who wants to have a whack? And the young Marines just lost their fucking minds. It was hilarious.
So you were able to keep it under wraps.
What happened is, as soon as it came down and Marines went to swinging on it, and of course I'm pulling the rope like everybody's great uncle did back in the day. And it was about a 5.5 foot tall pinata. It was, immediately the senior officers from the group and the base and
right.
they all disappeared. They're like, we're not going to be witness to this vulgarity or barbarism. But so they split. And I've got hilarious pictures of young Marines just going ape shit on this thing. Of course, you got to remember now, this is just a couple of months after
right.
9/11. And as a matter of fact, a friend of mine, Troy Hensley, he's a retired old sergeant major. He was a force recon guy, shot up a few times in Nam. He ended up being our backup guest speaker.
Okay. Because
our guest speaker, Jesse Constante, it was going to be his brother-in-law, who's I think he was an F-18 pilot, but immediately he was called away. So Troy stepped in, and Troy's a very good speaker. He gave a very motivational, we're out for blood kind of thing.
Right.
So, it was just a blast. And then the other part is we had talked the Air Force into letting us have 2 buses, I want to say. And at the time, there was a shit kicking place out in town, Graham's. It's no longer there.
Graham Central Station? Yep.
Yeah. Now there's hotels there. But anyhow, we talked everybody into like, look, okay, so it's Marine Ball, this has got to wrap up at 2300 or something. So if you want to go out in town, let's all hang together still, get on the buses. We'll go to Grand Central. They'll let us all in for nothing. Everybody behave. Now I took the staff NCOs aside. I said, look, here's the deal. You guys stay sober-ish. And you're just going to kind of be there making sure everything's good to go. And we had a blast. Not a single incident. I mean,
who wants to pick a fight with a bunch of jarheads on their birthday?
Yeah, it really turned out good.
It's not going to end how you'd like.
No, and then the Air Force found out exactly what we did use the buses for, so they were a little bit pissed off at me. They got over it. But I was just proud, because, Marine Corps ball, there's, I rolled a truck after Marine Corps ball years ago. If something happens, but, no harm, no foul. Everything was good to go. Everything accounted for. Everything got cleaned up. We had a great ball. It was really to date, one of my favorite.
Right there in the fire bay.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, the entire ceiling was draped in camo netting. We had actual oil lamps on all the tables. It was good. I enjoyed it. And they didn't have to then for several years after that. We continued to have our ball there because we could kind of do our own thing. And hell, most of it's all metal and cement, so Marines can only screw up so much with those kind of materials. Yeah, it worked out good.
So the other night we got together, me, you, Sam Carter, Chief Warrant Officer Mush, Jim Mush, and a few others, to include Dave Murray, and just sit there and listen to the stories that you all were telling. Could you kind of explain the scenario around the bar and what that meant to you all?
All right, so Rod Carter, who I mentioned before, a friend of all of ours. I met Rod in 92. He had just retired. He was out there at he's out there at Matissa working on the TCAC program. And they said, hey, we're going to put Jim McGinley at the time was the project officer for TCAC, yada, yada. So he moved Rod out here. We put a course together, Humpty Frets. Rod and I became really tight friends. We did a lot of riding together, motorcycles. And he had this old bar that he had bought, I want to say in the PI forever ago, hand carved, beautiful, heavy son of a bitch, that he had in his little pool table room there at the house on the lake. And he had it forever. And then, whenever we had get-togethers, we'd eventually end up at Rod's shooting pool.
Where did you get the table from?
Someplace in the PI. I don't know where. Oh, the pool table?
No, the bar.
The bars. It was in the PI. Okay. Yeah, if you saw it, you'd say, oh, yeah, that came from the PI. The pool table he got out of an old club in Okinawa, I want to say. It was a single slate, heavy son of a bitch. Every time we moved, it was a pain in the ass. But, so long story short, Rod passed away here a couple years ago. Cancer finally got him. It chased him forever and gave up the good fight. Or he gave a good fight and then just, ain't none of us getting off this rock alive. He just ended up leaving a little early. And so Patty and Zach and God, now I'm having another brain fart. Daughter, I'll think of here in a second. Emily. So they had moved and something. They had this big old bar, and it's a nasty old thing. It's got cigar burns all over. They were going to sell it, and Jim Mush and Dave Murray were like, well, shit. I don't know if they saw for sale or if Emily had called them or what the deal was.
I think it was posted up on Facebook or something along those lines.
See, I don't know about that shit. I never look at it. I keep getting asked to meet people on Facebook and LinkedIn, and I'm just not in any of it. But anywho, so they decided, well, screw this. We'll buy it. But I think Emily's just going to give it to them. And I'm assuming it'll probably end up at Dave's house for the time being. Jim's still active duty up at headquarters. So it's cool. It's a little piece of history we're going to keep in the family, so to speak.
So one of the things that I talked about with Jim Mush when I interviewed him just a few days ago was the calculus that one applies when they start to consider whether they stay enlisted or submit a package to become a chief warrant officer. Would you care to talk to me a little bit about that and why it is that you stayed enlisted and then, by extension, what the role is from the perspective of a senior staff NCO to the chief warrant officer and vice versa?
Well, there's a couple things there. One, again, I credit. I was always fortunate in that the senior enlisted, and by that I mean say gunnies and above, that I worked under, worked directly under, or worked with in any of the commands I was ever served in. I was always fortunate in that I got very good guidance from them. Reb Taylor, Mickey Weatherly, Art Wheeler, just guys, Wayne Gatewood, just guys I still look up to this day. My point being, and I did entertain a WO package I was a senior sergeant in Homestead, Florida, and I kept getting drug in for NJPs for stuff that never stuck. But and we had Gunner Lansing there. Now, Gunner Lansing was one of the last real gunners in the Marine Corps at the time, but he was a secondary too, and he this is going way back, so shit, I don't think anybody except for guys of my age and older would remember him. But he was a legend. He really was. He was something else. And he was the one that said, do you ever think about a warrant officer package? Because I had just gotten passed for staff sergeant my first go around because of a NJP that did stick as a sergeant. And I said, well, then I got Mickey Weatherly and a couple of those guys got a hold of me. Fulton Loftus. They're like, fucking don't be a warrant officer. We gotta, if this is what happens. If all the guys become warrant officers, we don't maintain any technical proficiency, any kind of leadership in the enlisted ranks, senior enlisted ranks. And at that time, I was on my second tour. I wasn't exactly 100% committed to making a career out of it. Heck, you just don't know. But I guess they flattered me in that I was kind of a wild man as a single sergeant, doing my thing down there in southern Florida.
Could never imagine that.
Yeah, but I was working a senior chief's job as the tech control Bubba. It was a big operation back, the MSGA days. So technically, I guess I was good to go, and leadership wise, I was good to go. I just, I had a wild side, and those guys, really, and they won't be shy about town. They took care of my ass. I talked to the CEO out of doing worse things than she tried to do. Gina Richard, I like her a lot too, but she had an obligation to make sure I stayed within certain boundaries.
Good order and discipline.
Yeah, that's I think I heard that a lot. But so that was a big thing for me. I was like, okay, I'll try one more thing. And I put on staff sergeant. And then I put on gunnery. By the time I was a staff sergeant, it was really, I tell people this at the very beginning. It was actually before I put on staff sergeant. I think I got selected. I remember looking at myself in the mirror and thinking, I might have been hungover, I'm not sure, that I'm not in the Marine Corps. I'm not in the Marine Corps. I'm a Marine. And that was kind of a clarifying moment for me. I wasn't in the Marine Corps. I'm a Marine. This is what I am. This is who I am. And I just kept banging away from there.
You think another? Maybe I'm asking myself this. I wonder if Marines ask themselves that enough.
Well, here's another example. Okay, so at a SysCom, Dwayne Whitmer, who worked with a certain group of folks up at the fort, cool guy stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And I had different friends that had been up there and had done duty, and at the time, they were doing some cutting edge stuff. And it was one of those groups that, don't ask us, we'll find you kind of thing. Right. And he said, look, you got the right stuff in this, but, he said, be a lot better if you were a linguist. You're not. But I'd get you in there. And I thought, and I remember thinking long and hard at that moment, I was trying to go back to second rate at the time, looking at going back to second. And I talked to a couple other guys, Luke Kelly being one, about what duty may have been like in that unit. And as being a 29, it probably would not have been as sexy as what they had been doing. Right. So I thought, and I remember getting a hold of Dwayne, saying, I appreciate, putting in a word for him, but I think I can do better. I can do more good at second rate battalion. So that's the route I went. Again, I kind of knew where my strengths and weaknesses are, and I thought they were better applied going back to Radio Battalion and making an impact back there.
Yeah, and it kind of touches on something that we discussed on the truck coming back from the feed store. And that, for me, my focus has always been, or my fixation has always been, on the infantry. You know, I'd rather be supporting 3-8 or 1-2, you name it, rather than the soft community or the JSOC community.
Absolutely.
Not to take away from what they do. I mean, because it is sexy, and you get the black silkies and all that other good stuff.
But still look really fucking hot in the black silkies.
I can only imagine.
I embarrass my friends when I put those on it for whatever occasion it might be. Apparently, they're no longer in style.
But kind of like yourself, I mean, when I walked into the recruiter's office, I said I wanted to be a grunt. I wanted to be.
I didn't know there was anything else in the Marine Corps. I thought that was it. And honestly, I said, "What can?" And this is really kind of funny how it turned out. I said, "I want to be a paratrooper in the Marine Corps," because my buddy he had gold wings. Oh, that's cool. So he had been a battalion recon guy. So yeah, that's what I thought. I thought all Marines did was go shoot people, blow stuff up, and jump out of airplanes. I didn't know really.
Yeah. So I had a few years of college under my belt already, and I walked in, asked to use the head, and the guy's like, staff sergeant was like, "Whoa, there's so much strangers walking." I said, "I'm ready to join the Marines. I'm about ready to piss myself. Where's the restroom at?" And he said, "The head's right around the corner." That was kind of like my first introduction to seafaring terminology, but when I sat down with them, I took the test, and I smoke checked the ASVAB, or the practice ASVAB. With a 99 AFQT, and he's like, so what do you want to do? You can do anything you want. I said, I want to be a grunt. he's like, why is it that I get these 10-pound head poolies that walk in here and they want to go to the infantry? And he was the one that convinced me to start looking into signals intelligence, ground electronic warfare. He had just put in another Marine by the name of Derek Duckett into the same program, and I ended up meeting up with that guy at DOI. He became an Arabic linguist, but has since gotten out. Now he's back in Texas City, home, where we started. But for me, the I guess the honor of working alongside the O3 community was something that was somewhere I always wanted to be.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a good, clean feeling associated with it for me.
I agree. People, God, I just hate it. And anybody who's ever sat in a classroom that I've taught, I don't exactly hold back on. I never did a tour at NSA. I went up there for meetings, pre-deployment things, CY 200, or whatever the hell that was. And that was nothing more than a damn drunk fest, really, and going to briefings every day. I just, I never, ever considered myself a purple suitor. When I would sit and listen to these Marines, and we work for NSA. I'm like, fuck, you don't. You're at this radio battalion. You work for the Marine Corps, and you're in support of, Marine Corps operations. That's what you do. If you don't understand that, you should probably get the hell out of here. And a lot of them, they were really offended by and there's nothing wrong with NSA. But I'm just saying, for a guy sitting at, say, 2nd Radio Battalion, quacking about, because he had just come from the fort, let's say, quacking about, this and that, and this is who I, like, no. You're here to support that MAGTF commander, period. And if you can't do that, if you're not bringing anything to the table to help with that mission, then stay home. I personally, if I was in charge, I got no use for you.
Right. Yeah. And it probably doesn't surprise you to hear that some of those conversations take place today in,
I'm sure,
one-on-one, peer-to-peer conversations. And for me at the MEF, sitting so close to General Nicholson out there and Sergeant Major Marquez, I get to conduct a needs values assessment on those individuals on a regular basis. And when I hear things like from General Nicholson's mouth, we need to retain an RRT capability. RP capability.
Yeah, General Gray's the one that started that back in the day.
Right.
And he had been a SIGINT officer, did a tour, something like so. He understood what SIGINT was. And back then, the signals were such that you had to get up and close and personal with certain things. So it was absolutely viable. But again, with today's technology, some will argue that it's not relevant any longer to have that capability. I disagree because you just never know what's over the horizon. We might not be going against the most technically advanced target in the future. So it's important to maintain certain skills. I tell you what, I'm still pissed off at the fact that we don't teach Marines Morse code anymore. I still believe that to be a viable thing somewhere out there one day that could possibly happen, and we got nobody chasing dits and das. And I'm assuming that the mindset behind that is you can crash a guy through school quick enough to get him to learn. But just kind of like we always do, we're always chasing what language. We're always behind the power curve on having the right number of linguists ready for the next conflict.
It's like trying to turn a carrier on a dime.
Yeah.
And I think there is a certain amount of over-reliance upon the technology to be able to kind of gap those deficiencies, or to bridge the gap on those deficiencies when it's required. But it kind of goes back to, now with some of the tools that we have available to us, you still need to we have a requirement to maintain the mindset of equipping the Marine versus manning the equipment.
Yeah.
And that's another topic of discussion that came up, quite a bit these past 2 weeks that I've been here in San Angelo. Because, and the Commandant, General Neller, recently reinforced that mindset, is that the Marine is our single greatest asset. It's not our carriers. It's not our Joint Strike Fighters. It's not even our rifles.
Yeah.
It's that, to kind of paraphrase.
It's the most important weapon is between his ears.
Right.
Or her ears.
The 6 inches between your brain or between your ears is the most important terrain on the battle space.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've been around this gun club quite a bit. What does it mean to you that we've got a Marine chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff?
That's pretty huge.
A Marine Secretary of Defense.
Yeah.
And a Marine Chief of Staff in the White House.
Yeah. It's like, gee, you can say what you will about the president, but that's the one thing he's always been known for, is picking some of the right people. I think it's cool that those guys are still in their positions when so many are no longer. And just going to say
they've been rotating out of this cyclic rate.
Yeah. I'm just saying, Marine, I'd love to be a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
And hear what those two have to say to the president behind closed doors. I would hope that they're like a good senior enlisted reading the riot act, that if this continues, this is what's probably going to happen. Because they certainly know, they're up to. They've got they've got all the box checked to be in the positions they're in, I think.
Yeah.
It just pisses me off, all the political correctness. You can't say diddly squat anymore without offending somebody. God knows how. I was constantly warned, at least through the last half of my career. Oh, God, you can't say that. You can't say that. Well, you can take it this way, you can take it that way, but this is how I say things.
Right.
And not once did I may have offended a couple of people, but God, people were just scared to death that I'd have a harassment suit brought on me. But I think, this is one of the things I can say with a clear conscience, I never used my position for anything personal. And God help the person who did that worked under me, because I wasn't on a crusade, but I got a problem with people that misuse their position for whatever reason. So I don't know how the hell we get on that subject.
We're talking about the Marines in the positions that they're in during this administration.
Yeah. Gee. Yeah. Trump's no dummy. He wanted some ass kickers, fire breathers.
Yeah.
And that's what he's got.
One of the things that I've always liked about General Mattis is, I mean, all you got to do is just press record when he's talking, and you'll
General Mattis.
You'll get something out of him. How does it make you feel when you see some of the, I guess, the iconography of him, with like he's Saint Mattis of Quantico, you know, with this, you know, his finger in a beneficent pose, and you know the whole, like he's beatified, like by the Catholic Church.
Yeah. No, I'm an old mackerel snapper myself. So.
Okay.
I don't know. I think it's pretty interesting. Not to get off subject, but somebody was telling me once years ago that there are more Catholic officers in the Marine Corps than there are any other service.
I don't think I've ever heard that.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about all the ones I know. There's sure off the top of my head, I could say 50% of the ones that I know of, studied the Baltimore Catechism at one time or another.
Yeah, so I was brought up in Catholic schools up until when my parents couldn't afford it any longer.
San Angelo, and it was kind of you can't afford it, you're the first of 7, fuck that. And the nuns were kind of saying, yeah, these probably would do better in public school.
Yeah, and that's what ended up happening with me. But you know, I walked away from the church for quite a few years with the hubris of being mad at God for some of the things that happened when I was a kid. You know, losing real close friends to some gang-related homicides at a young age, and still trying to figure it out. And when the family was kind of force-feeding confirmation to me, but I wasn't ready to take, you know, that kid at the dinner table was like, I'm not eating this. Yeah. But I was able to communicate to my godfather, my uncle Frank, and my dad, I'm not doing this, and this is why. And they, you know, between the two of them, and kind of chewed on it a little bit, and they said, you know what, he'll be back. Sure enough, I was, but
you know, it's funny. People, you know, when I tell them the strength that I have in my faith, it's kind of funny. They're like, "What, you? Huh? That don't make sense. You say bad words a lot."
But I can ask for forgiveness on Sunday.
Yeah, hell, you don't even have to go to confession anymore. You just get a big group wave and woo. I'll say this. I mean, I am very strong in my convictions and faith. Yada yada yada. I don't attend church. I'm not a big organized part. You know, I accepted all the learnings and the teachings. Yada yada. If I was raising, let me put it this way: if I was raising kids today, then I'd be like, oh fuck, I got to go to church. Okay, just to expose it to them and they can make up their mind at some point.
And that's kind of the approach that Liz and I have taken with the boys at 16 and 11.
Yeah. You know, my fourth and final wife here, daughter of a Baptist preacher, which I always thought was funny because they probably thought I was the devil, or maybe still do. I don't know. They've been very accepting. And actually, when we first started dating, you know, she was brokenhearted because I wouldn't go to church with her. And then I started going with her, and then I had to listen to these Baptists talk bad about Catholics. I'm like, fuck, I never heard a Catholic priest talk shit about anybody. What kind of fucking shit is this? So I kind of called her out on that, said, I ain't doing this anymore. So, I don't know.
I got into it when I was here in San Angelo. I was voluntold by the wife that they needed soccer coaches. The boys wanted to participate in the soccer program. Well, it turns out this soccer program in particular was an evangelist effort for them to kind of increase their throughput on Sundays. And so they'd stop practice and they'd stop the middle of the game and they'd do their devotionals.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't, at the time I wasn't confirmed Catholic, and I mean we still went to church, but I wasn't all in. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't feel confident enough to be able to preach to other people's kids from a denominational perspective that was not my own in a public setting like that. So, you know, and I mentioned it to the league director and the parents, and they kind of were surprised at my honesty. It's like, look, I'm not saying that this is right or wrong. I don't know if I'm the guy to be doing this. So I'll coach the soccer if one of you can step up and do the religious education piece associated with this youth sports organization.
And, you know, honestly, and all of that, you know, I just, you know, all the different variances in Christianity, and it's all the same damn thing, you know. When old Henry VIII is the one that started fucking shit up. Of course, then we had shithead popes back then.
It's a little bit of bad on both ends.
I'm just saying, if man touches it, it's all fucked up.
Yeah.
You know, so I kind of am of that mindset now. I know what I know, and
you don't know what you don't know.
I don't know what, and I'm not going to try to fill in the blanks with bullshit.
That's one of the things that I've always loved about the Marine Corps is that you kind of, not that you're forced to, but you are kind of expected to just put that shit to the side and let's carry out the mission, and we'll just poke fun at each other when we're chowing down or grabbing a beer.
No mercy.
Yeah.
No mercy. You know, it's funny. I try to explain to different friends of mine, cowboy buddies, who actually, you know, kind of a parallel universe, act like a bunch of young Marines. But you know, they're always like, tell us a story about it. I'm like, no, I can't do that. You wouldn't understand certain things that take place. It's just, you know, shit that's funny. I was always going to, in buddies, I stay in touch with, I stay in touch with guys I've known since the beginning of my career. And we'll get together and talk about stupid shit that we used to do. And I keep saying, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to name it Titties and Beer after that Frank Zappa song. Those younger days, that's all it was besides work. But
speaking of a book, when I was here, I had a retired Air Force civilian employee at Goodfellow loaned me Dunk's Almanac.
Oh, you had never seen it before?
I'd never seen it before.
Gosh, all of us grew up with that.
It's not around. It's lost. It's lost knowledge, Tom. I'm telling you.
I could have sworn I just saw that on a website for some books. Yeah, that was it was before the Marine Corps had a reading program. It was like everybody kind of passed his books around. I think there were 3 in all.
So
3 different things.
In the research I've done, I want to say it was like 8 or 9, because after he retired, he continued to write. I guess he became a journalist for the local newspaper, and then collected everything that he had compiled everything into, you know, these small run publications. But he recently passed away. I want to say maybe within the last 10 years or so. I say recently, dating myself here in 2018, but it's hard. It's hard to get your hands on those copies. So I'm looking for them.
Yeah, honestly, God, it was in the last several months. I was online looking for something in a book, and I'll be damned if I didn't come across those. Kind of made me smile on account. I hadn't heard anything about them.
Did you know that he was a SIG-enter?
Yeah. Well, if you read through his books, there's at least 2 that I can think of, stories that could, you know, just a little short, involved other guys that I knew. They were master gunnies back when I was a corporal, so. But yeah, they show up from time to time and embarrassing little stories about them.
If I'm not mistaken, I think he was a Russian linguist.
I don't remember.
Yeah, but you know, just some of the tidbits of wisdom that were in that one, just the one volume that I had access to for a little bit, and I had to give it back to the guy because his father was a Marine and had given it to him, and he kept it, but. We worked quite a bit together, and he let me hold on to it for a while. And I would, in the mornings, I'd take a snippet out of it, and I'd email it out to all the language instructors, just to kind of like a little devotionals in the morning, if you will, to kind of spruce up the motivation amongst the training staff there. But one of the things that's kind of become very popular with the Junior Marines are these terminal lance.
Terminal lance is hilarious.
You like that?
I first saw that when I was in Fallujah, I think, and working with First Rated Battalion. Yeah, I thought it was spot on. And I was surprised that they kept continuing, because I heard they were going to yank it. Wasn't it in Marine Corps times?
Yeah, there was some fallout to it, but I think the fact that the Marine was no longer in,
right?
So you can't touch him.
Yeah.
So, and then the fact that it resonated.
It absolutely did.
In a way that was honest and visceral and open, and poke fun at some of the things that we do, and I think challenge some of our values and our mannerisms, and
well, it just points out facts, warts and all about daily life in the Marine Corps, especially from the point of view of the junior enlisted, which I think is hilarious. And that is something I've always, when I come across peers who act holier than thou and just basically kind of dicks, I would remind them that, you weren't fucking born a master sergeant, and although you may have been a little douche and kind of flying below the radar back then, I identify with these guys, I got half a bubble off on, half the shit I was doing, goofy stuff, nothing illegal. Well, anyhow, yeah, that would bother me that they never look, kind of put themselves in their shoes and like, oh yeah, all right, maybe he's not a total asswipe. He's redeemable,
right?
And that's another thing. I've had some challenging Marines work for me, guys who at second rated battalion. I won't mention names, but say a guy in the company Marine, very headstrong, but technically sharp, just did not get along with the leadership. That he was working under. Well, I took him in, and he is fucking fantastic Marine. A wild man, but I'm telling you, I'll take a wild man who's smart as hell and technically proficient. I'll take it. I'd rather be a smart ass than a dumbass.
Right.
They just need the right kind of leadership. I never had a problem with this guy, and I've had several. I had several like him. They just got to have the right leadership. They got to have somebody they work for who has their back. When the shit hits the fan, it's kind of funny because it does happen to me a couple of times where, things kind of go south and all of a sudden you look around, you find out who your real friends are.
Yeah.
And I mean that not just in a friend way, but in a command structure,
Yes. Yes.
All of a sudden those captains and majors that were, really friendly towards you, you're like the plague. They do not acknowledge you because
I had a situation like that recently with one of my gunnery sergeants, and he came under the gun, and I pulled him close and told him, I said, look, we're going to get through this together. You're not alone.
Yeah.
And the implications that were being directed at him were unfounded, and but I wanted him to understand that as long as he's on the level with me, I got your back, and in that same courtesy, I make it a point to address with the junior Marines when they check in, because I have an inordinate number of corporals hanging around me there at the MEF than I would somewhere else, like maybe at a rad bin or elsewhere, and I bring them in, I talk to them one-on-one and tell them, look, I'm not your father, and I'm not your friend.
Yeah,
I'm your staff in COIC, but I'm also your older brother, and I'm going to expect you to do the right things for the right reasons when no one's looking. But if you ever find yourself afoul of the organization and the UCMJ or just anything immoral, unethical, or anything along those lines, as long as you don't lie to me, we'll figure a way through the process. And unfortunately, I've had those Marines that felt like I need to talk to top, and they reach out to me, and even guys that have left and are no longer physically in my vicinity. But that's the great thing about the communication capabilities that we have nowadays. We can stay in touch in ways in which we didn't have in the past. I know you said you don't Facebook and you don't LinkedIn and all of that, but so how
I got a phone, you can call me.
And that's how you maintain contact with all your buddies?
Yeah, I do. And, it's really cool, I do a lot when I'm traveling down to the coast to go fishing or something, or I'm stuck in the cab of that truck for a few hours, Shit, I haven't talked to Frank in a long time. So I'll call old buddies. Just shoot the shit while I'm driving down the road. The hands-free thing, of course.
Right.
It's, just catch up. And now we're all at a point now where we are retiring or retired from our second professions, if you will. So now we're all, I'm the only one that hasn't bought a Winnebago or whatever those things are.
An Airstream.
Yeah. But they're all, oh, yeah, we're going to get on the road this summer, we're going to swing through Texas and come by and see you. I'm like, okay. I'll see you when I see you. Well, what is so cool, you know, this is another thing, you know, guys you won't see for 15, 20 years. You see them, you sit down, you have a beer, you start talking. It's like you were just doing something yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a strange thing. I'm sure that's like that in a lot of other communities and stations in life, but
I don't know if that's true, Tom.
Yeah.
There's something about the experience of being in this gun club that transcends some of those other communities or organizations, groups. You know, and the perfect example was there's a Master Sergeant out at 3rd Radio Battalion. I don't know if you know him or not, Kevin Simmons.
Mm-hmm.
So we went through DLI together, but after that, our career paths diverged completely up until when I checked in at 3MEF, and I was invited down to evaluate their McCree, and we jumped into his pickup truck as we were going around from site to site as they were getting things locked on, and you know, we kind of filled each other out initially, but I mean, it wasn't long before we were, you know, shooting the shit like we'd known each other for years, and you know, majority of my time being at 2nd Radio Battalion or with DIA or short stint with NSA and here at the schoolhouse, we didn't get a chance to cross paths, but we didn't need to, because he wore the same cloth as me.
Yeah,
and I think that's one of the great things about this warfighting organization that you can't really get it elsewhere.
Yeah, I don't know how the bonds are formed. I don't quite understand it. I just know that they're strong and indivisible, really.
So I was trying to explain that to a young poolee, a good friend of mine, as close to me as my own flesh and blood. His son has been kind of on the fence about going to the Marine Corps for quite a while, and the sticking point seemed to be the fact that intel contracts are very high demand, low density, and you know, through our conversations, you know, I came to figure out that he scored pretty high on the ASVAB and took the D lab, and was looking to come into the SIGINT community, but there weren't any spaces available. So, you know, I reached out to John Scoggins, asked a question, reached out to Jeff Grant, asked a question. They linked me up with a former SIGINTer, 8412, and you know, he says, hey, you know, I happen to know the OPSO down there at MEPS in Houston, and you know, give me the kid's name. You know, we'll see what they got available. And when I went to talk to the kid's mother and father and him in particular, and we discussed, you got a Black Widow right there.
They're all over the damn place.
Yeah. We went to discuss the implications of him moving around dates and the contracts and whatnot. You know, I reminded him, I said, look, you know, all the kids, because I went to their initial strength test that morning. I said, all the kids that were there, they don't have someone looking out for them like you do right now. And it's not even just me. I'm leveraging the goodwill and camaraderie and brotherhood that you know, has been afforded to me through you know, membership in this organization. I said, but you know, you don't see it yet, but you owe a debt now. Because, you know, these guys pulled some strings to get you where you wanted to be. Don't go in there half-stepping. You need to go in there and be at the front of the pack, you know, earn the distinction and the considerations that you've been granted. So hopefully he hears this and he takes it to heart.
Yeah, you don't get a whole lot of advantages in life and in any walk of life. And to disrespect or not acknowledge whatever it took, good word, whatever, to get you where you're at. It's just, I think, kind of wrong.
Well, what were some of the things that you experienced when you were going through the training pipelines that kind of got you through those rough times?
Honestly, in high school and in college, I was one of those guys that picked up stuff pretty quick. Didn't study a whole lot at all.
There's a lot of us like that in this field.
It's a
because if we did, we'd have gotten our degrees and we wouldn't find ourselves on yellow footprints, right?
Exactly. So A school was a breeze. Gunny Wheeland, who went on to be the first NSA Senior Enlisted director, he was like the company gunny down there. And I worked for him directly in Pensacola for months because I was waiting on for my clearance forever. It was easy. And then I finally went through, and then Art Wheeler was one of my instructors, and I breezed through this, memorizing 5-level tape, that kind of stuff. And then going on, and then when I was in Spain, I was able to talk my CO there into, because I'd spent all my time, I'd mastered all the 51 stuff, and I spent all my time on the watch floor with the analysts, seeing what's really happening. And I really liked that. So I talked him into, and I think Don Price was the monitor at the time. I talked him into, hey, send me down to A&R school in here, in Goodfellow. So they did, and I ended up being an honor graduate. For somebody who had to learn.
There's not many 51s that were going to A&R back then.
No. I don't want to say I was the first, but I was very sure I'm one of the first. So what happened was that kind of opened up a little bit of a floodgate. The other 51s did not do well, ended up washing out. So I still think it was under Don Price's tutelage up there that they pulled back on that. And I always tell people too, I started life as a 51 and learned a lot of different trade secrets as a 51 that I absolutely applied as a team leader and RRED and stuff. Although those jobs have changed 180 degrees today what they do. But school was easy. I went through I was fortunate and I was able to go to NCO school in Okinawa, breeze.
What was life like in Okinawa back then?
I was stationed at Iwakuni. I was 51. So I had won a board, Lance Corporal board or whatever the hell it was. So they put me up for meritorious corporal. So I won the thing in Iwakuni, but then you had to go down to, because the actual wing was in Okinawa.
Right.
So I went down there, and I remember, of course, they were all pilots out of, was that Fatima or whatever it is?
Fatima, yeah.
And still at this time, I still wanted to be able to fly. I wanted to fly. So I thought, well, I'm going to tell these fuckers, I want to be a flyer just like them. So I did, and they were, I got the meritorious corporal. So they were like, well, there's a NCO course kicking off up at Hanson. We're just going to send you directly there. I'm like, oh, shit. So I'm really a Lance Corporal.
Right.
So I'm in there with a bunch of grunt sergeants and stuff. I had a blast. And again, it was a couple of guys from 3rd Recon, that I kind of paled up with. And that's back when Kinville was Kinville.
Yeah.
It ain't nothing like it today,
It's still a hoot.
Well, last time Penny and I went through, all these poor Marines were running for the gate at midnight like fucking Cinderella of Liberty. And they had all these different colored cards, and I was like, I never would have survived. I would not survive in today's Marine Corps, the young Marine, I don't think. I think it's a bad precedence that we've clamped all the Marines down because 1 or 2 Marines are morons. It takes away, being responsible for yourself. I just really disagree with a lot of things, especially, even some of the stuff locally here, how they've clamped down on the Marines going through school here.
Right.
I don't know. I just don't think that's the answer. The leaderships.
We're going to trust them to lead other Marines
They're
in
unwilling
combat.
to assume the risk that, okay, these are young men and women that, no different than their cousins going to university XYZ, probably far better off morally or whatever. But to hold them down and restrict them like children, that just pisses me off. I mean, it really just jerks my chain. And it's funny, when I was still going to the battalions up until June or July of last year, you're talking to young Marines and how even locked down they were.
Right.
I was like, God, it ain't right. How can I ask you one day to go, go out on a patrol in a bad part of the world, and the next day treat you like a damn 12-year-old. I don't get that. You know, if they're gonna fuck up out there, they fuck up. They take their licks. They either move on or they don't.
They pay for it. Yeah.
But don't crucify the masses because you got a couple knuckleheads or.
Yeah, we've come across it several times, and even staff NCOs have been secured from liberty and alcohol consumption and confined to bases, except in the execution of your official duties. And that aspect of life on the Rock is probably my least favorite. But I'm going to sit down with Sergeant Major Marquez and when I get back, and maybe it's something that I can bring up to him. See what he has to say.
Well, here's what, the Sergeant Major first sergeant community, again, when I talk about staff NCOs who forgot where they came from, especially if they were my age, let's say, and they were out this order and we're clamping down. We're not letting the Marines do this or that. I'm thinking, this is bullshit. That's a lazy man's way out. Instead of, teaching them first how to behave. If you're going to drink, but drink responsibly, don't turn into an asshole. That's key thing. But they're just relieving themselves of the duty of teaching Marines to be responsible for themselves. And that's the easiest way. Click, push a button, nobody goes anywhere, nothing can happen now. Little do they know, for what I suspect, there's all sorts of shit happening in the barracks. Probably as bad, if not worse. So, yeah, I've always had a different mentality on alcohol use and abuse and whatnot. Because Irish, there's just certain things bred into me that, just don't be an asshole. Don't drive, even though you think you can.
Right. Yeah. So DUIs are one of those things that the minimum blood alcohol content you can have is like 0.003 or something.
That's fucking ridiculous.
So that's the smallest content that they can reliably measure using the devices the breathalyzers that they have. And if they see you with the white plate out at 2-3 in the morning, they'll pull you over just on that alone.
Really?
Yeah.
This is the Okinawans?
The Okinawans, yeah.
Well, they've had a hard on for us forever. And that somehow they lump in the knucklehead that rapes a little girl over there,
right,
with a guy who goes out and has a face full of beer. I don't see how the two are connected. But
yeah, there is a cognitive dissonance there. So while you were there, did you ever get a plate of taco rice?
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah.
What'd you think about that coming from Texas?
It was different, but I liked it. I'm a fool. I eat anything, everything, and anything. I'll try it once. And more often than not, I'm not that picky. I like differences.
So my boys have become big fans of sushi and soba and miso and all of that. They've adapted very well to our time in Okinawa. And when we were stationed in the Dominican Republic for several years, they fell right in with that crowd too, from the yaniqueques to the seafood and all of that. Being from Galveston, I grew up on an island, so an island is an island is an island to me. Whether we're eating noodles or carne guisada or you name it, it's all the same to me. But there's something about being surrounded by water, which you're not here.
What? I got that whole creek over there is full of water. The creek over there is full of water for a few weeks, and then it'll be desert again.
So was this always your dream to kind of to have a big ranch with over 100 head of cattle and?
Yeah, I mean it's it's funny. I see old buddies of mine that God, Tom, you're fucking living the dream. You're just living the fucking dream. I'm like, I played my cards right there. I saved my pennies. I didn't buy shit I didn't need. I don't owe a dime. I mean, everything's paid for here, all the equipment, all the new fence, the house, I went to my financial advisor here a couple weeks ago and moved some 401k stuff around. I'm like, shit, I am in pretty good shape,
Yeah.
I'm trying to impress upon our youngest, who's in the Navy now. He's at the 7 or 8 year mark. He's a weapons control petty officer and stationed in Norfolk now at one of the facilities. He was on ship forever. but he'll hit his 10-year mark and have to figure out what he's going to do.
Which road do you think he's going to take?
I don't know. At that point, something that you don't think of as a young Marine, and that's okay. The benefits upon retirement, the medical benefits, period. Where something you could have, let's say, $1 million sitting in the bank, but you could kill. I mean, with insurance and what comes out of a patient's pocket,
right?
It could wipe you out. We don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, I when we were here, Liz was diagnosed with breast cancer, and the overall treatment for everything, top to bottom, was in the hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, well, okay, so I don't think a whole lot of folks know this. A year ago, I ended up having open heart surgery, which I was about as shocked. I mean, the look on my face when the doctor told me what was going on, I was like, wait, fuck, no, I'm Tom Dean. This doesn't happen. Look, I'm a stud still.
You see this mustache?
Yeah. Look, fucker, figure something else out. No, it was weird. I was down here just below the house, ripping out old fence. And I was getting winded, and I had a headache, and I didn't stop doing what I was doing.
Of course not.
So I kept going. And finally I thought, something's wrong. So I got a little blood pressure machine. I take my blood pressure. It was high. I thought, fuck, something's wrong. So I go to see the doc. And he goes, yeah, something's wrong. So he sends me to cardiology. He goes, yeah, something's wrong. So they do a catheterization. And he's like, do you want to get knocked out, or do you want to see what's going on? I'm like, I like seeing what's going on. I've had 4 knee surgeries. I was awake for all of those. Those are interesting.
Were you sedated or not sedated, but numbed up?
Yes.
Okay.
But I'll just never forget the guy, jerking my whole body around. My whole body's flopping. I was like, I don't even feel this. But on the catheterization, I'm watching the doc, and he's a great big screen, and he's signaling over a guy behind the window, and he's squirting dye up through your stuff, showing through the heart. And you could see it go to a spot and stop in 3 spots. And he's looking, he's talking. I'm thinking, this ain't going good. Because he was hoping to go in there and put a stent in. So he gets another doc, and he comes, and they shoot the dye, and it stops. I'm thinking, fuck. So they're like, okay, and they start getting me in. They're wheeling me out of here. I said, so I didn't see a stent go in. I said, does that mean you're going to be cracking me up? And he goes, yeah, as soon as possible. I'm like, fuck. Wait, did I tell you I was Tom Dean?
They cracked you like a lobster.
Yeah. I mean, I was blown away. I was like, wait a second. I've spent my entire life staying in shape. I don't smoke except for the occasional cigars. Hell, I don't drink half of what I used to. My family history, my dad, my mom, my grandparent,
it
all
comes into play.
Heart, yeah. So long story short, he's like, no, man. He said, you could have dropped dead tomorrow doing what you're doing up there. He said, but we caught it. We're going to knock it out. So the next guy, I talked to the doctor who's actually doing the cut. He says, well, here's the 3 blockages. They're 95% blocked. He says, we got to get them. One of them's the Widowmaker, whatever the hell that is. So as I'm walking, and the week before that, I had gone to a skin doc. I hadn't been to a skin doc before, and I'm starting to get spots on me. And so he took a little biopsy, and so I'm walking out of the heart doctor, and he calls, and he says, hey, this just came back for positive melanoma or whatever the hell. I'm like, oh, fuck, awesome. What else is going to happen today?
Right.
So he goes, we need to get that out of you as soon as possible. I said, well, they want to crack me open tomorrow morning for open heart. He goes, oh, shit. I said, but I tell you what, I'm going to feel like shit anyhow. Let's knock it all out. So I go back into the heart doc, and he calls Ramirez up, and they talk about where it is. So it's about half an inch. He took like 3 inches out here. It's about half an inch from the main slice down the center.
Wow.
So I went in that afternoon. They cut that out. The following morning, I'm in there, and But I credit being halfway in decent shape. I was up moving,
right?
Doing all the shit that you're not supposed to do. I was out of the hospital 2 days earlier than expected. Get home here, doing my little fag walks every day, and nurses would come and check on me, and that was really one of the because they walk with you, and I'm hauling ass because there was a nurse, and I had to show her I was Tom D.
Right.
And she goes, hey, you need to slow the fuck down. I'm like, why? What? I thought the idea was to get going. And she goes, no, you don't understand. Those micro sutures, what they do is they pull veins out of your leg.
Okay.
Basically, they're just rerouting the plumbing. She's like, those micro sutures, your heart's beating because you're breaking a sweat, dumbass. Those could come loose, they'll pop, and you'll just stand here and bleed to death. And ain't shit you're going to be able to do about it out here in the sticks. I'm like, oh, that kind of makes sense. So I slowed down a little bit. Then I went to cutting telephone poles and putting in that little, where that steer's down there getting fed out. You know, it was just kind of funny the way that the docs was. So my point being, goddamn, I don't know who's going to listen to all this bullshit, but
you'd be surprised. I tell you, we're over 3,000 downloads.
So talking about medical shit, right?
Right.
So I'm seeing all the bills that are going through TRICARE. Plus, I also pay out of pocket every month for a TRICARE supplement, just so I don't have to go through the fucking hobby shop down there at Goodfellow. But that whole thing ended up being like $650K. Well, Christ, that's a lot of money still, you know. So my point being, you know, you're paying your dues up front while you're in uniform and stuff like that, but that is an invaluable.
Yeah.
You know, if you think about it, that's really, it's a financial worry you don't have to be worried about.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, that was a hell of a weight off of my shoulders when we were dealing with that. When my father passed away, he had an aneurysm at the age of 50 down in the Galveston area. But he had good insurance, and so that wasn't a concern. And then when my wife, subsequent to that, had the breast cancer treatment, you know, I mean, we had the best of the best, and we were able to submit to TRICARE to get them to cover us at MD Anderson in Houston, so we'd be close to my extended family. And then, you know, that's one of the best cancer research centers in the world. The oncologist that Elizabeth had is a world-renowned leader in the field, you know, and you know, information HB and what it is, and I'm doing research on her, and she's presenting at the top symposiums and conferences that they have in the field of oncology. So I felt like, and I knew that I was in good hands, and
yeah,
you know,
absolutely. You know, talking about Rod Carter, right? So if you knew Rod, he could squeeze some pennies together.
Yeah,
he would do things on the cheap, and he dealt with skin cancer forever, and then this other shit showed up. And he kept going, and nothing against about some of the local stuff. But when you're dealing with the big C, like I'm going to go to the best, you know. But I kept saying, Rod, just go to fucking MD Anderson. Regardless of what it costs, you got more money than God, you know.
Yeah.
Just fucking go do it. Well, he dicked around, and then it got worse. And then he said, well, fuck, I'm going to MD Anderson. When he got down there, they said, look, had you come to us 6 months ago,
that's exactly what they told us.
We could have fucking helped you out, but now you're
If
done.
we'd have gotten to MD Anderson 6 months later,
yeah,
who knows how things would have played out. You know, I'm sitting there. Liz went through 14-hour surgery, and the whole time, Tom, I'm not bullshitting you. I'm worried about how the fuck I would go about continuing my journey in the Corps to finish out my 20 and still raise 2 sons at the same time without her.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
I don't even like thinking about shit.
Yeah.
That's why I married a young one. So I'm almost guaranteed to go first.
Of course, hedging your bets.
The other night when I got something, you know, around here, it's, you know, we talk about Murphy's Law in the Marine Corps, right? Murphy's Law on the ranch, that cocksucker is camped out, you know, and when it rains, it pours. You know, we were working cattle the other morning. It was sunny like it is now. We got them all in the pens down there. They start breaking shit. Then all of a sudden it starts pouring down rain. Then we got one of the trucks stuck with it. It's just a clusterfuck. And then the gate broke on me, the one I just came in. You know, I felt bad. Cheryl was here sick, and I was back in the shop there throwing tools around. I said, if I fucking die tomorrow, you better sell this fucking. I couldn't imagine. There'd be no way. There's just so many things that can go wrong and do go wrong on a daily basis.
Right.
You know, you do, and here's one thing. I ain't never been a quitter. You know, I get so mad. I think, why the fuck do I put myself? I could be down fishing in Port O'Connor right now, but instead I'm.
So where'd you grow up that fishing became just a big
actually
pastime?
From Minnesota.
Okay, so I don't know why I thought you were always from Texas.
No.
Maybe it was the Texas state flag cummerbund that you used to wear at the ball.
Oh yeah. No, my first time through here was '78.
Okay.
And
you just fell in love with it.
I absolutely fell in love with it here. The people, that was the first thing, was the people, and attitude, a sense of independence. Nobody's depending on anything from anybody.
Yeah.
Neighbors helped, but when something bad happened, neighbors helped. I just fell in here. I loved it. And then I came back through another school, and again, I got to know more people in the outlying areas like where we are here. And I was able to score orders here as an instructor in 91, which is where I really took hold and bought my first place. I just love Texas. But as far as fishing, hell, Minnesota, big fish.
Right,
well, I got introduced to fishing down on the coast here, about 6.5 hours from here, hauling ass. Buddies of mine, and I'm absolutely addicted. I immediately bought a different kind of boat, a bay boat. It's crazy. You got a $60,000 boat, and you get your boat, and you go out in the water, and then you get out of the boat, and you wade fish. Not unlike how they did it up in your neck of the woods.
Yeah.
All up and down the coast, there's like silver reds and specks and flounder.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm going next week.
What's the closest city?
It's called Port O'Connor's, where my buddy has a house there.
Okay.
He's got a boat, and I got a boat. We keep him down there. Dave Murray's a big fisherman I thought he was from the Galveston or something area around there.
Maybe Corpus.
I can't remember. So he's all bay fisherman. Jed Tanner, who used to work for us, who moved on. He's up in Dallas area now. He likes fishing. So we're all meeting up down there the week after next.
Okay.
But then we'll come home from that, and then the following week, Cheryl and I are going down for our anniversary. We try to get down there, and then my son and his daughter are coming in from Denver a couple weeks after that. So I'll be down there. I'm usually about every 3 weeks this time of year. I'm down there.
Colonel Norton, he's the 4th Marine Regiment CO. His son and mine are part of the same Boy Scout troop. He's been trying to get me to go out with him to go fishing. So I think when we get back to Okinawa, we're gonna go deep sea fishing.
That'll be blue water stuff.
Yeah.
That's one thing I envied the guys in Hawaii. I was never stationed there, but I started going there actually when I was on the Syscom, I think. But going out, just hardly getting out of Kaneohe there and hammering dolphin and stuff.
Right.
But I like fishing a lot.
Growing up, we used to go fishing all the time. It's something that even my great grandfathers were big fans of, and we'd all go out there. Maybe 8, 9, 10 of us, meet up at some pier, and then later on, my dad bought a little 14-footer, and we'd get out into the Galveston Bay and speckled trout, red snapper.
Oh, they're fantastic eating.
Yeah,
I love it.
There's something about island life.
Well, it's on the water, I had a girlfriend. We were going over the bridge down there by Sneed's Ferry one day, and she says, "You just got this weird, stupid look on your face every time we cross the water." She goes, "You really like the water?" I'm like, "Well, I grew up on a lake, basically.
Right.
You can't throw a rock anywhere from where I grew up and not hit water. And then, obviously, in the Marine Corps, with the exception of being here, you're on the water. I always, as a young sergeant in Homestead, Florida, I had a big ass boat parked out back of the barracks, and that's where we used to work at 22280, that schedule. So we fill that boat up with beer and ice and fuel and some food, and I'd bring it to watch there on Cardson Road, just down the road from Alabama. Jackson's where a place you could launch at, North Key Largo, and we'd take off for 3 days. It was debauchery going up and down the intercoastal there to the other.
You ever do any sailing?
I never have. It's something I keep saying, that's just a skill set I'd like to have.
Man, I had a family. We had a family in the Dominican Republic when we were stationed. I was in the DAO out there. And former Marine, he was a IT guy. They were getting ready to PCS out, and he said, "Sam, I've been trying to sell this boat. Nobody wants to buy it." I was talking to the kids at the dinner table with the wife the other day, and they said that because we'd gone out with them to the sailing club to go get on the water a couple of times and kind of learn the ropes, so to speak. The kids said they wanted to gift the boat to me and my boys. So we had a little laser. It's a dinghy, but it's got a dagger board. And man, we figured it out. We ended up getting a membership at the sailing club there in Santo Domingo. And that was like our rest and relaxation right outside the main capital. That we hit that little beach, but the hard part was the way that they had it set up. There's like this gazebo out on the pier. So you had a very small like channel that you had to get the boat out of. You don't have, there's no oars,
no power. Yeah.
There's no power. I mean, you figure it out. So you know, I'd being the biggest of the bunch, I'd push this off, slide on, and my oldest became very skilled very quickly. And we a couple of times, you know, we'd get blown right back in because you're going against the wind.
Yeah.
But you know, you tack and jibe but once we got it down, we could do it. I could push off, and we would just tack once, and we'd be right into the bay there. But then, you know, we'd come back, and you know, after we kind of got our TTPs down together, you know, get a nice fried snapper, the whole thing, you know, sitting there, and you eat the whole fish, and you know, and some mixed drinks right there on the water. You know, we watch some of these other families trying to get their boats out, and we just sit there and giggle and laugh, and and eventually Enrique would want to go and help them, show them, you know, kind of show them the ropes, like this is what you got to do. But the great thing was that was a skill set that me and the boys learned in Spanish.
Cool.
But just recently, I'd say in the last maybe 5 or 6 years, they built a Sea Scouts base in Galveston. Some wildcatting family made a significant amount of money and wanted to kind of build a community sailing program. So they tied it to the Sea Scouts program of the Boy Scouts of America, but there's also a community sailing program. And they do some veterans outreach events where they'll bring in, you know, wounded warriors, guys, you know, quadriplegics, and I mean the whole nine. That they'll get out and they'll use the larger boats, what they call sonars, keel boats, so a little bit more stable.
Yeah.
But they get out there in the Galveston Bay, and every time we go home, for the most part, especially when my oldest son is itching for it, and he does all the time, we'll get out there on the water. But I was thinking about setting up a retreat for some of the instructors here at Goodfellow because I'm getting ready to come back for 32 days of leave in Galveston.
Oh.
This will be the first time returning. Not on official business with the family since we left at the end of 2016. So I was thinking about setting up something at a minimum, go sailing, or you know, do a little fishing and whatnot. I was talking to see if Kyle Cornett or any of those guys want to come down.
Yeah, cool.
It's a little bit of a trip from San Angelo.
It is.
It's about maybe 6-7 hours
to Galveston. I'd say 7.
Yeah,
I've gone on a couple cruises out of there from here.
Where'd you go?
No, it's just a shitty Caribbean deal down to Mexico. The last one I was on, the reason I went on it, because one of the stops was supposed to be Belize. And we couldn't go there because some old person died on the thing. So we had to go so far out to meet up with a Coast Guard helicopter to fly this corpse off. But it was still fun. Now, we went on an Alaskan cruise 2 years ago in June. That was fantastic.
Out of Galveston?
No, out of Seattle.
Okay. Hey man, it's a hell of a trip from Galveston to Alaska.
But yeah, it was cool. But I'm kind of cruised out now. I mean, doing some other stuff, going on
it's like a floating hotel.
Yeah, I mean, I like this one better because all the other ones were like Carnival, those great big monster ships, like being on an aircraft carrier, just way too damn many people.
Right.
This is a much smaller ship, like 1,500 people. It was more personal. It was just beautiful. Less that young party atmosphere, more old people.
Old farts. So, you said your youngest son's, he's what, 7 years in the Navy?
I want to say 7, going on 8. 7. Yeah.
How many other kids do you have? I don't think I know.
2. He's the youngest. 2. My daughter Megan and son Tommy. Megan's going to be 43 this summer.
She's about my age.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and then grandkids right now. Those are friends of mine are getting ready to have their first grandkids. And I said, "Oh, you're gonna love this." I mean, grandkids, they wreck you. They fucking wreck you. I'm serious. They're just funny. Yeah. I used to tell people they could sit and light the carpet on fire in front of me. I'd be laughing. Of course, now they're all going to be 15. Yeah, 13 and 15 this summer. This weekend, as a matter of fact. So now they're the obnoxious teenage, age. But
right.
I put they love coming up here. I give my grandson. He started off the BB gun when he was little. Now here's your 22. Here's a canteen of water, beat it.
Right.
You know, you can only shoot certain things. But, you know, comes back all sunburnt and scratched up and tore up.
That's good living.
Oh, fuck yeah. Yeah, that's how I grew up. Yeah, I was much younger.
Yeah.
Say 7 and 8, grab a 22, head up to the woods. But
teach you how to sharpen a knife?
Actually, I haven't. No, not yet. No. My granddaughter, she's funny. She's into ag and everything. She's almost as tall as I am.
She's into what?
Ag.
I know what that is, but I don't think most people will.
Ag classes, you know, like how to do shit on a ranch farm. But she wants to be a teacher how to weld this summer. Like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, those are skills. Those are.
Oh gosh, yeah. She's just fun to hell. They're all good students. I don't know where they get it from. And she's musical. God dang, she's just.
What's she play?
The bass.
Really?
And they introduced bass into the marching band for certain things. But she plays stand-up bass and electric bass.
Okay.
Sings and writes her own music.
Country?
A little bit, some not so much.
It's all fused together now.
Yeah, I mean, you know, around here, I don't know if you listen to the stuff around here. It's all red dirt, and it's stuff I like. The shit coming out of Nashville's all
pop music.
Gay, fucking gay. It is. It's just It might as well be. It's pop music.
So I guess I grew up listening to a lot of rap music, but I also grew up listening to a lot of Santana, Jimi Hendrix, Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Oh yeah.
Electric Texas Roadhouse blues kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I was really disappointed when I found out that they closed down Sealy Flats in
Sealy Flats was very cool. That's one of the places, you know, San Angelo's undergone they're trying to make it the little mini river walk like San Antonio. And it's cool. They got some neat little bars down there now.
Yeah.
But Sealy Flats, I loved it because they'd have the live venue outside there. They sold it. The gal or gals that have run what's right across the street?
Fifi Dubois?
Fifi Dubois, yeah. Hey, Fifi's actually has good live music all the time.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So when I did my wet down to Gunny there at Sealy Flats. Mm-hmm. We had a big old table. Megan Tubbs was a person who played live music.
Oh, yeah, I met Megan Tubbs. I actually got a couple of her CDs. Yeah,
she's awesome. She rocked the house that night. It was a good time, and I, put all the money on the bar and appetizers and whatnot. We had a good little showing, but we ended up doing one of our going away parties at the house of Phoebe Dubois. Mm-hmm. We rented out the winter
stream.
Yeah, the Airstream inside the building. That was pretty cool. Hung out, had a great time, and that's one of the things I liked about San Angelo because it is a small town. It does have an eclectic feel to it.
Absolutely, everybody thinks it's straight up cowboy, redneck, whatever. It's actually, I would say, for lack of better words, very progressive.
Right.
But the music scene's really cool.
Yep. And I've got some buddies of mine. One in particular. Gunny DeVera is coming in. He's 51. He's going to be working with the 51 courses, and they call him Aloha Rick because he's spent a lot of time in Hawaii, and that's where he's got roots. But his wife joined him on this TAD in order to kind of determine if he was going to be making the trip to San Angelo accompanied or unaccompanied. And so what advice would you give for a Marine family coming to San Angelo, not being locals?
From here, it's funny. I don't think I met Kyle's wife when I ran into him at a restaurant out there in Carlsbad a couple of years ago. And I don't know if she's from that area. I'm guessing she is because I met her parents. Anyhow, so it's a different place. But don't judge it by what you're expecting. Just get out there, meet the community, meet everybody. If you've got kids, get involved with stuff. There's just an abundance of things to do around here. My favorite time of year, and we go to almost all the performances, rodeo. The whole rodeo scene here is huge. I mean, it's tiny little San Angelo, but it's like the 4th largest rodeo in the world.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the saying here, you don't get to Vegas unless you go through San Angelo. So that's a big. I always encourage, if you've never seen a rodeo or don't know anything about rodeo, it doesn't matter. It's the atmosphere of the rodeo is a blast. And there's all the show barns, of course they got the midway and everything. But that's a lot of fun. Of course, then there's the big giant beer barn and live music. That's as big a part of it as anything. There's just a lot to do here. I wish we had a few more restaurants. When I travel now, I always make a point to find an Indian or a Thai restaurant because I love those foods, right? But, Tex-Mex and steaks, you got just an ass ton of that here.
Yeah. What's your favorite Tex-Mex restaurant in San Angelo?
On Oaks. Why can't I go there for lunch? Of course, now that I'm retired, I don't go every damn. I'll up here, The hell is it?
Franco's?
No, I do like Franco's. But I like this one better. It's not Oaks, just not very far from base.
Armentas?
Armentas, yes. Armentas Cafe is my favorite.
Yeah. What about Fuentes?
Fuentes, if I'm downtown and I don't feel like going anywhere, yeah, I'll go to Fuentes. The original one down there in Chadburn.
Yeah. For me, we used to go to, right after church, we go to Franco's.
Uh-huh.
It reminds me a lot of the Tex-Mex restaurant that my grandmother's brother, my Theo Bull, owned. He's a Army vet from the Vietnam era, if I'm not mistaken. It may have been World War II. I don't know, and it's bad on me for not knowing which conflict he was in. But when he got back, he started a restaurant El Nopalito, and it was like the centerpiece for the Mexican American community there on the island.
Cool.
And the food there at Franco's reminds me most of his. Fuentes is nice, but it definitely has that touristy.
It does.
Armentas
doesn't though.
No. Armentas is probably now my favorite. But they had just opened up right when I was getting ready to leave in 2011, 12 time frame.
No, they've been there for at least 03.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm thinking of after the remodel, and that's when we started going.
They added on that section that's kind of like an outdoor section now, but you always had the little tiny inside there.
Okay. What about steakhouses?
I'm still a big Western Skies guy.
Western Skies?
Yeah.
I think we went out there when the first week of the working group. You ever been to Cork and Pig?
Oh yeah.
What do you think about that spot?
That was all right. I mean, I wouldn't go out of my way.
How often do you get out to Austin?
Gosh, I haven't been to Austin in years. Not much at all. Last time I went through there when my daughter was looking to move somewhere in Texas, I finally talked her into that. And we kind of made a big triangle around the center part of Texas. We went through Austin, San Antonio. They ended up buying in Bernie.
Okay.
They absolutely love it there.
Yeah, so my wife was teaching. Funny story. My wife was teaching out there in Bernie when we were stationed in San Antonio at Company 8.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and she was in the I think it was two-way immersion or bilingual education program out there. It was a two-way immersion program where they take half of the native Spanish speakers, half the native English speakers, and they teach them both languages.
Oh.
So it's kind of like getting them right on two languages simultaneously, as opposed to just saying you're going to learn English. And a lot of the white families that were out there, that was a hot commodity to get your kid in the two-way immersion program because they wanted their kids to be bilingual too.
What school was it that she was teaching?
I don't want to lie to you.
Was it the high school or?
No, it was in the elementary school.
Oh,
she taught the elementary school level. Liz has been she's focused on elementary education pretty much her entire career. She's like at 24, 25 years teaching experience now. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
So when we were dating, when I met her, she was just finishing up her master's in educational administration. But as you know, bouncing around from school district to school district, state to state, a lot of times they know that she's a military spouse, that she's only going to be there for a finite period of time, and they don't want to invest in an individual by giving them a position of leadership in that regard. So she's mostly stayed in the classroom. But now here at Dodea overseas, she's hitting all the right boxes and making the right moves. I think she's eyeballing an administration position here or there in Okinawa rather.
My next door neighbor in Spain was DODIS or over at Dodea, or Department of
Department
DOD
of Education Activity.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just learned this. The DODS, was a Department of Defense education system in the United States, is a separate entity than the one overseas.
Oh.
And right now there's some work underway to merge them, combine them into one. But it's not being received very well by some of the
It looked like
teachers.
a pretty good gig. I remember her. She'd been in Spain for several years, and she was getting ready to go someplace else and live in another part of the world. Kind of like active duty folks.
Right. Yeah. Some of the teachers. Matter of fact, my youngest son Vicente, his homeroom teacher lives 2 doors down from us. We just moved off base. We were living in the towers out on Camp Courtney.
Mm-hmm.
Do not recommend that.
No. I've always lived on the economy. When I was married at different intervals or times over my career, I always lived out in town. I just liked it better, even overseas.
So were you being facetious when you said 4 wives, or is that the actual number?
No, that's the number.
So if I could kind of condense it down to one statement or one purpose or mission statement for the Top Game podcast, it's talking to Marine staff and COs and figuring out how it is that they've managed to balance between personal and professional life.
It's tough. I mean, it was tough for me. I was always the idiot raising my hand to deploy, even when I was in, the different companies I was in. You had deploying elements. So, were there little short trips or long trips? Well, short trip, I think the shortest trip was like 60 days. A long trip was maybe 90. They were usually short runs.
Right.
And then at second radio, that tour and radio recon, when that started up in the mid 80s, of the almost 6 years I was there, I was actually there in the Camp Lejeune area, something like 11 months. So I was either training or was literally deployed. So for me, my first wife, high school sweetheart, that kind of thing, mother of the 2 oldest children, that didn't work out. Second one was a fluke. Third one was an English gal. I don't think work had that much to do with it. But I was gone a lot, so
It didn't help.
no.
And so with the current missus.
Fourth and final. I always think of it like product reporting. Remember,
Yeah.
in a series, E-series, this is the fourth and final reporting. No, great. I mean, we met in Lejeune at. So you're familiar? You're obviously.
Yeah.
And
5 years there.
and you're probably familiar with the Tar Heel.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where we met. It's kind of funny because I used to hang out there all the time, being a pig. There was this really big girl who wanted to dance, and I had danced with her weeks before, and it was like moving a refrigerator around the dance floor, and not conducive to two-stepping. Anyhow, she'd say, "Hey, let's dance." I'm like, "Oh, okay, just a minute." Next, I hate this song. I don't like this song, and one of Cheryl's friends came on. "Hey, my friend would like to dance with you." I'm like, "Who's that?" And she pointed her. I'm like, "Oh yeah, fuck yeah." So then I went and danced with her, and Big Girl was just staring daggers at us. But yeah, that's how we met. Typical town. I just never meet chicks at church
No.
or in the frozen food section. Just saloons. So yeah, that's all been good. Settle down.
So talk to me about the infamous recruitment video.
Oh God. That was such a fucking pain in my ass. So there hadn't been anything out, and I can't even remember who came up with the idea. But it started under Colonel Tyson. It might have been his thoughts, I don't know. So we started working with Combat Camera there at Lejeune.
Okay.
The one kid was Russian-born, big guy, a good kid though, and he was up for doing anything. So I kind of had an idea what I wanted to look. I wanted to be professional and not just a bunch of hoorah stuff.
Right.
So basically, every time we were doing something, we'd take him and this other little fella training with us out in the field. And, they were troopers, man. They hung right with us and, through the mud and everything. And whenever we had something, which I always considered fun, like spy rigging or fast roping,
Right.
Come on, you want to try? Or you want to jump out of back of a 46 into the water, catch up to the boat? And yeah, they were all about it. So over the course of about a year, they just filmed all these different things. You know, we had a couple pair evolutions and Humpty Fred. And then the last one, God, I was so pissed off. So there's this, I can't remember, I think it opens, shows a bunch of shit, and then a couple of Zodiacs coming ashore. And then I'm supposed to start talking about stuff. And
what do you talk about?
Well, mission statement, all that.
Okay.
And I don't ever write anything down.
Why would you? You're Tom Dean.
Yeah, exactly. So anyhow, I pull up. I got the camera guys with me, and we got 2 second lieutenants. I'll leave their names out. They're out in the boats with the guys, and they're fiddle fucking around, and they come ashore and they run into each other.
On camera?
On camera. But worse, I mean, it could have ended bad. I mean, somebody could have got hurt. And that was the one thing I was hell on my guys. Don't fuck around. They were clearly fucking around. But they had a lieutenant in each boat, and both of them are in wetsuits. And they came up and they're kind of looking at me, and I'm pissed. I'm in UD t-shirts and a t-shirt, I think. And I grab both by their wetsuits, and I drag them off to the side. And I'm like, what the fuck? So now I'm pissed off. And now we got to film the opening hooey to this stupid ass video. And so the guy's filming, and I'm like, I get about 10 words out of my mouth. And I'm like, motherfucker. So the Russian kid, he says, look, just say a few words, and then we'll cut to a different angle, and you continue talking. So basically, I get through a series of statements, and it's like from one camera angle to the other. So it just pieces it all together.
Right.
It looks kind of goofy, if you ask me. Because I'm looking at the camera this way and saying yada yada, and I'm looking at the camera this way saying yada yada. Because I get yada yada out of my mouth and be followed by motherfucker. I was so pissed off still. I was just wanting to choke somebody. So that all came together. And it ends kind of gay. You know, I give the old mission statements. I'm sure they could still be the same, and it's got a little history. Yeah, so literally the video got finished and delivered. I was checking out to come here as a Senior Enlisted. So I gave it to Colonel Tyson. I looked at it once. I thought, it'll serve its purpose, I think. Yeah, and then I left, came here, kind of forgot about it, and then I started getting. Hey, you're the one that did the video. Yeah. I'm like, oh, fuck. So I went digging through some shit here a couple of years ago because somebody was giving me a ration of shit about it. And I found the old VHS. Trouble is I don't have the VHS players. One of these days I'll get it transferred.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of guys that would like to get their hands on that.
I may just burn it. But it was, yeah, the intent was right. The execution probably could have been better, had been more time at the end, but I wanted to get it done before I PCS'd.
Right. I wonder if they archived it.
I have no idea.
Let me call out to the combat camera crew.
I want to say there was a couple guys in the last couple of years that made another one or something.
Okay.
So
I think I heard the tagline was, come out to Second Radio Battalion, the water's nice, or something.
That's how I ended it, yeah. And that was just straight out of my ass. I was pissed. Again, I wanted to wrap up. So I was like, yeah, come on down to Camp Lejeune. The water's fine. Or something, And then I said, let's go. And then we all go running to the fucking boats again. It could not have been more gay.
So what does Tom Dean read?
I'm finally back to the point where I can start reading for fun as opposed to constant technical publications.
Right.
Because work being what it was, I was always just reading and writing. The job, there's just a lot of writing, all the bullshit reports and everything that go out all the time. So what I read a lot, as a registered Hereford reader, I'm always reading up on that. I mean, if for some reason I went to college today to get a different degree or whatever, it would be in ag, and because that interests me. I mean, A lot of people think farming and ranching is for goobers. They don't realize that most of these guys
this shit is a science.
They have ag degrees.
It is a science.
Yeah, the equipment today.
That's what A&M is about, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So that's the kind of stuff that interests me. So as far as reading goes today, I'm just now to the point now where I'm getting to read for,
For fun?
fun. Yeah.
You didn't want to say the word fun.
Well, it's just something to relax. Right now I'm reading a book called Apache Adams.
Apache Adams.
Apache Adams, a cowboy. He's a real life cowboy. He lives over here just outside of Bronx, but he grew up down on the Rio Grande, just outside of Big Bend Park.
Okay.
And what's cool about it, I met the man, is he's talking, it's the 50s, and the way he's describing life down there on the ranch, no power, no running water, the 50s. And then on into the 60s and 70s, you would think he was talking about the
1800s.
late 1800s. Yeah, it's just a really interesting read. And it's nothing more than just a series of short stories of incidences that I can relate to now, having done this stuff for several years again. So it's been a fun read. But it's cool. I was commenting to another buddy of mine that, wow, when I get done with it, I'm going to give it to the grandkids to read. Because my granddaughter, Mary especially, is interested in that kind of stuff. It's not long ago, it was pretty damn Western here. It still is. But how you go down there today, it's wide. That's wide open country down there around Marfa and Alpine.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
I'm going through some of Cormac McCarthy's books, and most recently I picked up Blood Meridian. You ever read any of his stuff?
I don't think so, no. I mean, back in the day, as a young Marine, I think I read every fucking book that had to do with the Marine Corps.
So this is
novels and stuff.
Yeah,
like
this
that.
this has nothing to do with the Marine Corps. This is a different time in Texas.
Oh,
it's set around the late 1800s, and it covers the Indian scalp trade. It's a very dark book.
yeah.
But the author, Cormac McCarthy's a Texas transplant like yourself.
Most Texans are, though. I always tell, there's the old, I'm not from Texas, but I got here as soon as I could kind of thing.
Yeah.
If you look at all the big names, especially if you talk about Alamo, that kind of shit.
Oh, yeah.
All them knuckleheads came from the East.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, funny story, I got that sticker at Buc-ee's on the way back from Galveston. You may all go to hell and I will go to Texas.
I've got a flask with that engraved on it, yeah. Yep.
What is it about Texas that
Fierce independence. It's just, again, I got this little patch of dirt here. It's mine. And fuck y'all.
Right.
I will do whatever I want. I've got a nice, if you notice, that rifle range, 600-yard range. I got set up down there with a shooting table, and it's kind of hard to see from here. It almost looks like a landing strip when the grass changes. But, we shoot a lot. One of the things I've been fortunate to do, when I was a young Marine here, Troy Hensley's got a small ranch up the road. He used to hunt on his place all the time. If you know anything about anything, Texas doesn't have a whole lot of public land, so there's the leasing thing.
Right.
A lot of young Marines can't afford a $1,500, $2,500 hunting lease.
Right.
So Troy's let me on his place, and I've opened this place up to all the Marines down on base. Doesn't matter, students, staff, doesn't matter, come on up.
Careful now, because this goes out to a wide audience.
No, I tell them all, come shoot as many of these motherfuckers as you can. I've sat out there in that deer blind before and counted over 180 deer in a 180-degree swath where there's just way too many deer up here. So I tell the Marines, I think last year they took 27 or 28, which didn't put a dent in it.
Yeah.
It's horrible. When the wheat first comes up in October, it looks like a golf course. It's gorgeous, but it'll just be covered up in deer. It's crazy. So anyhow, they all come up, fart around, pretend they're running around in the woods. To me, this isn't hunting anymore.
Right.
That's why I'm going to British Columbia this fall for a moose hunt way up in the boonies. I mean, here I sit here with my 270 or 300 Remington Ultra Mag and snipe deer, 500-600 yards out there. But the guys, I know what it's like to, growing up hunting and not having a place to go. But just coming up here and walking around in the brush and jumping a deer and shooting it, and, unless you're Richie Molnar, who just wounds them. Or other ones who've come, they're ass shooters. They're all ass shooters. There was one day I was out here with them, and they're all just shooting everything in the ass. I was like, fuck. But,
yeah, chase it all over the place.
Yeah, I'll take you right now. We can drive around. There's at least 3 carcasses of deer that had bullet holes in them that then they can't find them. Smokes. But
maybe you got to give a PME before you turn them loose.
God. My nightmares, the guy, I started something 2 years ago after hearing some horror stories about guys getting sued. So let's say Richie comes up here and he accidentally shoots Dave Murray, and then Dave Murray's wife sues me because there were dumbasses on my place.
Right.
So I have everybody sign a hold harmless agreement. So like, if Richie does shoot Dave, well, you said you wouldn't do that. It's not my fault.
Right. Right.
But now they're all pretty good about it. I typically don't have more than 5 or 6 up here at a time. Deer hunt. Now we do Festivus every September 1st.
Okay.
Which is the dove opener, and we call it Festivus since we've been doing it since I first bought this place in 2004. So regardless of what day of the week it is, it's always September 1st, which is the first hunting season for dove, and it opens up. So regardless of what day of the week, we used to take the day off of work or school. I'll come up here, sit around. It's one of those few times, drink a few beers before the sun's up. Then everybody sits along the tree line out here, limits out on dove, and I'll usually I'll either put something on the big spit there. I've got a real big fryer. I'll do a big fish fry and sit around, eat, shoot the shit all after mid-noon, and then go out again for a late afternoon hunt.
How much beef do you keep on standby for just those types of occasions? Seeing as how you got your own cow.
I saw that giant.
I did.
21. No,
it's like a double wide trailer.
24.
Double wide deep freezer.
24.1 foot cubic feet. That's fortunate since we've been doing this is we always raise and slaughter our own beef. And if you ever do that, you think, oh my God, I'll never buy anything out of a store again.
Yeah.
Because like that steer that's down there now, I told you that one that fucking had a heart attack, that fat fuck, he would lay down next to his feeder, that rusted up looking thing there, and eat from a laying down position. And he just got so big, his heart blew up. So a buddy of mine had that Angus steer down there, after getting castrated, got a hernia. So now he looks like he's got a black volleyball between his legs. So he's going to die one way or the other. We're just trying to run enough grain through him to get him marbled up.
Right.
And then he'll go in the freezer. But we've always we're down to probably about 25, 28 pounds of beef right now. And then I think about too is that even if I get all the steaks and roast, blah, blah, you still end up with, say, 400, 450 pounds of hamburger.
Yep.
Which then I turn around and I'll offer it up for sale for, $3 a pound, which is as cheap as the shitty hamburger at the commissary.
Yep.
But this stuff, it tastes totally different.
It does.
Because what people don't know is, and this is funny because it's right here, like San Angelo packing, Lone Star packing. That's the stuff that ends up as packaged hamburger. Those are not typically beef. Well, there are some old beef cattle. It's where all my old shit goes to die. If it can walk on that trailer and walk off that trailer, it ends up as hamburger. 12-year-old cow or an old bull, or worse, if you want to look. They'll dairy cows. Just anything and everything. But that all ends up as ground hamburger, as opposed to prime, 16, 17-month-old steer who's been fed out correctly. I finish all my stuff off with corn and barley and gives it a real nice taste. It wrecks you. It just wrecks you.
So what do you, where do you get your news?
I get so pissed off. So we're on satellite here, right?
Right.
Yeah,
that's why I asked, because you're out here. I used DirecTV when I was in San Angelo.
Yeah.
But now in Okinawa, we're cable cutters. I don't even have the AFN, and that's just the way that we've approached it. But where does Tom Dean get his news here in the middle of Robert Lee, Texas?
Hey, I get up in the morning. I watch the local news at around 5. I can't take listening to those idiots for more than about a half hour. So then I watch my girlfriend Robin Mead on HLN for a little bit, and then once they start repeating, I'm up and out of the house doing work. Every now and then I'll check in on my Google News to see what's happening in the day.
Right.
That's it. In our package, we used to have Fox, but Fox isn't in the current package. And actually, when I was watching news, it was always Fox Business. At least they didn't have a quite goofiness about them.
Right. Just keep an eye on your funds, usual funds and whatnot.
Well, not just that, but they had the news, but you didn't have a bunch of talking heads, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like people who are news people telling me what the news is, not some hot chick reciting something off of a teleprompter.
Do you still read the Marine Corps Times?
Sometimes. Yeah. Every now and then I'll pick one out when I'm checking out something or checking out of the commissary or the PX.
So this is an older one.
How come it looks so little?
That's what they look like now.
Did they shrink?
They did shrink. They're tactical.
Oh.
But here on the headline it says closer to the fight, inside the Corps plan to deploy tech experts alongside the grunts. Have you heard about this?
No, but that's nothing new if you look at our business.
Well, yeah, but now they're trying to get them down to the lowest level possible.
Well, how?
Down to the squad.
Well, over the years we've looked at giving squads, certain pieces of equipment they didn't know why they were carrying or what it was doing, but they'd have it in their vehicle.
So here's what one of the quotes from the article. It says, eventually the Corps will see cyber and electronic warfare Marines on equal par with combat arms. I think we're almost there right now. Pushing cyber to the tip of the spear. Being close to the fight isn't just for grunts anymore.
I don't think, in order for certain cyber type stuff and even some EW, you wouldn't necessarily need a SIG in her. You know what I'm saying? For real time. But the way you can move data around the battlefield today, you don't need to. Just like, here's the other thing that drives me crazy. You'll be sitting there in Ramadi, let's say, or wherever, any place over there. Now, the last time I was over, everything they had moved up to Al-Assad. And where they're getting their polls from, they could get anywhere, such as their own language lab back in the rear. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So my question was to those CEOs, like, why the fuck do we have a det out here? Why are we having these guys do year-long dets sitting here in direct support of, operations outside the wire and they already had backup or one battalion was complementing the other first and second from their, I would call it language lab, but it's not language lab, it's the VSOCs.
Yeah.
Why not? I don't want, I'm one for being at the fight. But we're at a point now where, holy shit, you could, it's like working from home. You could, in theory, unless you're putting SSTs out, which they weren't doing anymore, nobody was leaving the wire. It was all,
I hated that.
Yeah, well, then, if that's what it is, then why are you sitting out here? I didn't get a good answer. I think one of it was, these guys need deploy time. You're not going to get any damn medals if you're not here. I don't know. But everything they were doing, they could do from all of the different VSOCs.
Yeah, but beyond just the EW support and the cyber support, they're also talking about putting, quadcopters in every squad, and there'd be a lance corporal that is your tech expert, and that's his job,
To me, that should be almost a secondary, secondary MS, secondary duty. I don't know if that would be a MOS specific thing. I don't see how it could be. I think then you're just. I'm always for going into whatever with the smallest footprint. Now you're expanding the footprint by a body and it's other different logistics concerns that you'd have to deal with. I don't know. And is it really that technical? Hell, my grandson shows me shit every day. I have no idea what it is. I just don't have any fucking desire to learn any of that shit.
But these young Marines are coming up embracing it. I mean, that's what they were.
Well, that's my point. They a lot of them, they already get it and whatnot. The other thing, talking earlier too about L3s, it's a horrible misconception, especially the 26 have of them because they're special 26s, especially those that come from DLI. You know what I mean?
I do.
They have this preconceived notion that grunts are stupid. Not if you look at the scores. You've got a shit ton of guys that are in infantry by choice who could be sitting right next to any of our folks.
Yeah,
there's a lot.
Easily.
I was guilty of probably thinking that way back when, but then after I got working with these guys every day, I'm like, wait a second. Sure, they got knuckleheads, but we got our fair share of knuckleheads too.
Yeah.
We got freaks, actually.
Yeah.
Again, out of DLI. But, so I think they'd be technically capable of handling a lot of different stuff, and even doing certain things real time, as long as you could pass the bulk of stuff back to real analysts who could then analyze as opposed to just be button pushers. I'd be sitting on a watch floor and Lance Corporal would say, I'm an analyst. I said, well, where did you go to school? I went to DLI. So have you been through Goodfellow? No, but I'm an analyst. So show me what you're analyzing. I called her a blobologist. That's what it was. She did not like it. Shit, I said she. But that's what it was. And I was like, fuck. So then I started training. I'm like, look, y'all think you're analysts. You're simply taking this information and you're applying it kind of with a very broad brush. You have not analyzed a bunch of pieces and come to any kind of conclusion that's actionable. They looked at me like cows trying to read the Bible. It's like, no, I'm an analyst. I'm like, no, Max Corporal, you're not an analyst. But as I used to, in my training, that's just so gay. And really, it's nothing against cock chuggers or anything, but it's just how I look at the world. Back in the day, I used to draw a triangle, right?
Right.
Down here, you had all these R390 receivers and a shit ton of linguists and code copiers. And they push all that shit through an analyst, right? Well, today, the vacuum it's upside down. Now you got a vacuum that's doing the job of a shit ton of gatherers, and you need all the analysts up here. See what I'm saying?
Right.
I said, so that's the dynamic that, I've had to get through my head. And I see why you guys call yourselves analysts. You're sitting out here on a watch floor doing what an analyst should be doing, but a lot of them weren't really doing any analysis.
Right.
But
that's one of the things we got into the second week out here was that there's almost too much information.
Well, gosh, there's just it's the shit that they're having to wade through,
right,
to find those golden nuggets.
And one of the KSAs that we chewed on was for the new MOS 2653. How do we develop an MOS that is capable of developing applications on the fly to process that data for us? So,
What's a 53?
So it's going to be that software developer. That's
really?
Software engineer. That we would have to go in through and look at, troves of data and then develop a front end for an analyst to use.
Well, we've had several guys who are not software developers. Hell, potato ass. Oh, God, too bad. He worked for me for a while. He came out a second, great big Russian linguist, never worked as a Russian linguist. What was the big database he started in?
I know you're talking about
Iraq.
I can't think of his name.
I feel like a dick.
But yeah, so those guys are outliers. But what we're saying is we need to create those guys.
Well,
train them and prep them and deploy them.
Yeah. Okay, so we've had those guys. There was a guy third here last time I was there who developed something to massage some data. And he was all proud of himself, got a NAM and everything. I said, well, you've already got that on TCAC. Oh, well, no, I'm like, hey, here, look, I just take all this shit, blah, 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 spit out, look, there it is. And he was pissed. Now, I'm sorry, but your boss didn't tell you about this because he hates TCAC or something.
Or the boss didn't know. There's that potential too.
That's where there are certain battalion commanders who always made it a point on an in-brief when we'd be out there training their kids, because you got guys who poo-poo everything. It's a piece of shit. I'm from NSA. I know better. Fuck you. So guys like Sean McBride and Randy, they set down all their senior staff. Randy Pugh, set down their senior staff NCOs and officers for like a little PME, and I would run through. Here are your capabilities. You don't have to know how to run this shit. Just know that it exists. Get the required training you need for your analysts and use it. And then, so he would, and Randy's smart. He'd ask the question. He goes, okay, so can we do this? Oh, fuck, no, we can't do that. I'm like, click, click, click. And Sean went, yeah, you can. So that's half the battle, is just making people aware of the capabilities that they already have, because they came from a different world that used this particular application to solve a problem. Again, like we discussed earlier, analysts, everyone's got a different way of getting from point A to point B. And that's fine. Just be aware of the tools that you have in your box,
Yeah.
But it's going to the pushing technology forward. Yeah, I'm all for it. Who's going to do it? I don't know. This whole having a guy who knows how to write software. The only guys I know who know how to write software, just as soon frag. So you're going to be dealing with that.
Yeah.
And that's not a right statement. There's plenty of guys that are not complete social morons that do that kind of stuff. I don't know. I don't think it'll just be 2600s though. That when we talk about introducing technology to the front, I think those guys will either be homegrown or, again, you're a mortarman, but if you're not slinging those downrange, here's how you play with your quadcopter or whatever it is.
Right.
Which he probably already knew how to, because he had one as a kid or something. I don't know.
Who would play Tom Dean in the movie?
Well, Clint's getting too old.
That's true.
And, see, I don't know actors' names and stuff.
Sam Elliott's...
He's too old.
Too old, too. But he's got the mustache. Maybe.
That sounds cool. I mean, go back to the day of Lifeguard, certain movies he was in. I just don't think about stuff like that. And I don't know any young actors.
Yeah.
Matt Damon's too short.
Yeah.
But I did like him in the new True Grit. I thought he did a pretty good job there. I don't know. That's a crazy question, man. I'm going to say it's gay.
How about this? What are you watching? When you flip on a television?
You know what I love? I just got done watching the first series or season of it. Was Barry.
Barry?
Yeah. It's
HBO.
Yeah.
He's a Marine.
Bill Hader's. Yeah. It's funny because I love Bill Hader from his days back on Saturday Night Live. But it's a really good thing. Yeah.
I forgot he was on Saturday Night Live.
It's a quick half-hour episode.
On HBO.
HBO, yeah.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
You ever see True Detective?
I saw a few of them.
It's dark.
That first season.
That first season is dark.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool.
Second season is a completely separate storyline. And that's kind of the way that Nick Pizzolatto envisioned it. He wrote a book called Galveston that touches on some of the same, I guess, themes from True Detective. But season 2 was a little bit different. It's set out in California.
Well, that's the one that Colin Quinn or whatever his name is, the Irish actor.
Colin Farrell.
Colin Farrell.
Yep. Rachel McAdams, young cute brunette.
Yeah.
And then, but season 3 is supposed to be in production right now.
Oh, really? So they're going to continue?
Yeah, it's continued. What about Westworld? Did you ever pick that open?
So not yet, but I have just recently. So they just showed last season, I guess. Recently,
season two is being released right now.
So I hit record, and I'm telling my wife tries. I got so much shit. I think I'm going to watch that someday. I never watch it, but I just recorded all the last season and everything that's come out new on this season. I haven't watched it, but when I was a kid, I loved Westworld. Yul Brynner,
right?
That was pretty cool.
So the TV show is much better produced in a much higher quality.
The movie was pretty jinky.
Did you know that Michael Crichton was the one that wrote it?
No.
The same guy that did Jurassic Park, Sphere, Congo, Eaters of the Dead, which I think became the 13th Warrior. Timeline. He's got a whole list of movies that he penned.
Yeah, Crichton's got a ton of shit. You know, it's funny, you talk about reading books. You know, I was a voracious reader for years. Of course, you didn't have cable TV. You didn't have this and that. And overseas, you had nothing but one channel of A-farts, which was laughable. And, of course, on deployment, you know, just ripping through books. But, you know, again, I read everything about the Vietnam War. It was funny. It was one of the courses I tested out of with a very high score, you know, the history of the Vietnam War. I just went in cold and knocked it out based on all the shit I'd read over all the years. Both historically, you know, factual type stuff and from different battles and who did what and how it all came about. But one of my favorite writers of all time is Leon Uris.
Never heard of him.
He wrote some big ass books, Trinity. God, I can't think of them now. Back in the day, I read all his stuff that had come out at that time. And of course, all of what's his nuts? Shit, he's dead now. Guy wrote all the Jack Ryan,
Tom Clancy.
I read all of Clancy's crap. And they started co-writing some weird stuff. That's where I dropped off there.
Yeah. So when I was at DLI, before the wife showed up, I was still living in the bricks. I picked up the Heritage trilogy. And what it was is jump off points like the Marine Corps in the future from a sci-fi perspective. It was written by a guy by the name of Ian Douglas, who, if I'm not mistaken, was a Navy corpsman, fleet, Marine Force Navy corpsman. And, you know, I think he starts talking about some of these things where these Marines are getting AIs embedded into their brain housing group, cybernetic implants, some of the technology that they were incorporating into the MAGTFs were, and this was back in 2000, and I think the books were written like in the maybe late 90s, but some of that stuff is starting to come true now, and it just, you know, it highlights the requirement for us to continue to innovate. And one of the things that I've heard recently, I was at the Innovation Symposium for the Marine Corps Warfighting Lab, and one of the former commanders that I'd served with on 22nd MU told me that from his perspective, we've had 3 commandants that really kind of pushed the Marine Corps forward. And one was General Gray.
Yeah. After
that, it was General Krulak. And the third commandant mentioned in the same breath was General Neller. Is that what you see from your perspective, or do you think that that's just the nature of the time frame in which he's serving? And what do you think are some of the dangers inherent with over relying on technology?
Exactly. I think you have to always remember your, you know, core mission. You know, what are you here to do? And what are the tools that we've always used to accomplish that? Now, if there's stuff that you can do or use to improve upon or whatever, you know, I wouldn't want to be reliant on. If I had to work a gizmo over here in order to pull a trigger over there, take that out of the equation. You know, that's keep it simple, stupid.
Yep.
Stay with keep it simple, stupid. I mean, if you're going to have to add shit somewhere somehow, you damn well better have a backup plan. Literally, and I've seen that a million times.
Like relying on a plugger.
Yeah, there you go. In the middle of the night, in the dark, trying to fiddle fuck around with something, and just getting pissed. I had a mad moment one night. I just got back second radio. The radios had changed. You know, we had 119s as opposed to 77s, which is what I had the last time I'd been there. So I'm in the middle of the night, I'm trying to talk to the OCAC, and the person on the other end didn't even know how to operate a radio or act on a radio, let me put it that way. And God, and I remember Armagoss was sitting next to me. I just went crazy. I started busting the set over the radio. You know, my point being is I got frustrated real fast because I didn't, you know, literally had just checked in and went to the field. And I was like, oh, this can't be that difficult. Well, if you remember, you probably don't remember. 77 was like 2 knobs, click, click, click. Okay, you're there.
Yeah, never touched them.
Yeah, this is
It was 119s for me.
Yeah, so yeah, it was funny. So I had to have a kind of little timeout for myself and say, all right, you're gonna have to learn some new tricks here real quick, which I did. But I'm just saying, and it always happens in the middle of the night in the rain. Shit doesn't work like it's supposed to, and you better not be thinking of a backup plan. You better already have that backup plan rehearsed and down pat to execute at any time. I think it's cool innovating, injecting new technologies as long as they're a no shit help to the mission, as opposed to a pretty bell and whistle. But I'm just saying, again, Murphy's Law, you better be ready to go old school at the drop of a hat, because you ain't got time to learn out there.
I've asked this question several times. I heard what you told me as a young sergeant getting ready to hit the fleet. But what advice would you give to that RTTL getting ready to do his workup? If you had good 30, 45 minutes to sit along with him.
Just, it's so funny. And I use these all the time with my grandkids. Okay, leadership traits. Know yourself, see self-improvement, blah, blah. All that shit, all that stuff we had drilled down our throat, almost like religion.
Yeah.
I, to this day, look at all of those, and they all have a place in life outside of the Marine Corps.
Definitely.
They really do. So,
When were those codified, Tom? Because they were always in...
As long as I've been around. So I'm sure they were well before that. But, your leadership traits, and,
the principles and core values.
It's funny, you can be a big enough smartass about anything in the Marine Corps, but if you think about those and if you do the job, you're practicing those on a daily basis. And I, as a knucklehead out here trying to run a cattle operation, practice those on a daily basis. I really do.
I believe it. I use them all the time with my Cub Scouts.
You really do.
My Boy Scouts.
With my grandkids, they'll be thinking about something and I'll rattle one of those off, which I couldn't do right now. But, they'll just pop in my head and they look at me like I'm fucking psycho. But that would be, know yourself. It can always be better. It can always be better. Just nobody's harder on me than me. And that's the way it's always been. I'm very self-critical, push myself. People use, you're so laid back. You're such a goofball. I'm like, yeah, you don't know what's going on inside here. I'm constantly beating myself up. But more importantly than you being the best you can be, make sure you're giving your Marines the tools that they can be the best that they can be. Years back when we first started doing this stuff in the 80s, fighting for school seats that we had no allocations for.
Right.
And a lot of them were done via drug deals. Guys I worked with, OICs with Force Recon, Battalion Recon, SEAL teams. I'd get a fucking phone call. Hey, Tom, we got an opening here. If you can send a body to wherever for whatever, you're more than welcome to it. So
highlighting the value and importance of networking.
Well, networking, but having earned a place at the table to get that. That's kind of a big thing, and that's a really hard thing to define, I think, for a lot of people. Social skills behind that, whatever it might be. But just being prepared. There's no such thing as being over-prepared. Physically, mentally, technically. And just be ready, again, at the drop of a hat to go ballistic. You just got to be ready for the gunfight,
So when I first kicked this off, it was with the understanding that I would be leveraging my placement and access as a Master Sergeant 2691, SIG NEW Chief at 3MEF, and sitting down with peers, guys who went before me, guys coming up behind me, and kind of my path to professionalization and kind of rounding out my understanding of my role as a Master Sergeant. What would you give me with that being said, as I'm leaning forward, becoming a more senior Master Sergeant in the community, but also in the hunt for master guns?
Well, I don't know. Think about, what is it you're trying to? Okay, let's say throw on master guns. what do you want to do as master guns?
So,
Ops chief, radio battalion, second, America's battalion.
yes. So that'd be a dream. Sean the Cow's out there, so they're in good hands. But I'm eyeballing this MiG at 3MEF.
Oh, that's right. They brought that shit back.
Yeah, and the ops chief for a MiG is a 2691.
Huh.
And the guy doing it now, Rich Dudo, he's got his plate full, but his focus right now is just facilities, installations, spaces,
not mission
construction. He's not there yet. So by the time that he's done, it'll be ready to rock and roll. And me being out there at 3MEF, that's what I'm looking forward. But many a slip, twixt cup and lip. Heard that watching Old Western long time ago, and so I'm just taking my shots as best I can.
Well, yeah, I guess because you're already there technically. What can you do again to make that MAGTF commander's mission successful? So when you're going into any kind of pre-brief or whatever, listen, and then say, hey, we can do that, or I know somebody that can do that. I don't have that asset. We don't have that asset in our MiG. What is it? A MiG?
MiG, MEF.
It's like the Shrig we had.
Yeah, well, it is a lot like the Shrig, without reconnaissance.
Yeah,
they're still with the division.
Okay. Well, my point being is just know what Go in there educated. Don't go in there and be that master gunner who goes, I got a thing called TCAC. I keep going back because it's the only thing I know now. But it doesn't do this. You sure? Know what's organic. First organically. What can I do organically? What can I do outside of that? Who can I call for this and that? Again, it's really important to stay in touch with your peers about capabilities, because the way they spend money on different R&D type stuff, FUIs and all, there might be a new magic box out there that was only given to, say, 2nd Radio Battalion to test. I got more equipment into the hands of radio reconnaissance Marines under the guise of a FUI. It wasn't, because if you field something, there's a lot of hurdles to go over.
Right.
But I can give Marines some capability and stuff as a field user evaluation to deploy with. But I'm just saying there's stuff coming up all the time.
Right.
There's guys working up north that are working with the Skunk Works or something on a new tool or a new gizmo to help us bring something to the fight. So I'm just saying, be that guy, be that button. And again, once you earn that confidence of the other folks, then they're going to seek you out. And when they start seeking you out, you just got to be ready to provide them with the best.
Right.
Don't make shit up.
So we're 2 hours and 45 minutes into
who would listen to something like this?
To your first podcast. I will tell you that some of the feedback that I've gotten, guys have listened to 3+ hour episodes for multiple cycles.
God, I hope Jim Mush doesn't listen to this for this one, because he won't be able to do it with his pants on. I'm serious. I can't see me listening to ramblings of me or
crusty old retired man.
What the fuck do I got to say? I got these young kids look at me at the ball this year. It was funny. This is going to sound bad. I purposely didn't go to the ball for the last couple of years.
Really?
Because I just didn't know how I'd handle one male Marine doing a slow dance with another male Marine, let's just say. Honestly, in the big scheme of things, I could give a fuck. I always have. I don't give a shit about, gay folks. But I just didn't think I'd be able to handle that too good, in that environment.
In uniform.
Yeah. So, and then, all the pictures you see, I was like, oh, fuck. Please be an Army guy. Please. Oh, God damn it, it's a Marine. No, so we went this last year. But it was very refined, and everybody's kind of scared. And I purposely had a table tucked in with all the students. And I was acting like I would at a Marine Corps ball. At a Marine ball. And I was constantly screwing with these young kids, and they loved it.
Yeah.
They absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
Instead of being tight ass, I'm like, what the fuck, how old are you? 22? What are you drinking? Coke? What are you fucking gay?
Yeah.
I think it has to go with the thumb being so tight on them. They're afraid to make a mistake. You should never be afraid to make a mistake. Just learn by your mistakes. Fall on your sword, get the fuck up, keep going.
I think a lot of it is that predicated on that zero tolerance policy.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
Yeah.
I think it's
zero defects.
Yes, it's horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah.
It does not promote any kind of progression towards something. I don't know. It's bad.
I think it's a hindrance towards character development.
Absolutely. You can't develop character if everything is roses.
One of the things that I heard growing up was good judgment comes from experience. An experienced son. That comes from bad judgment.
Yeah, that absolutely does. You can say all you want about learn from somebody else's mistakes. Christ, that'd be fucking boring. But
so one of the things that I tell my Marines fairly often, especially when they first check in, is that they're what they see in front of them is a product of the mass sergeants and the master gunnery sergeants that were an influence upon me. And Tom, you were one of those mass sergeants, and I appreciate it. You gave me what I needed to have right before I hit the fleet, and I can never thank you enough for that.
Oh, those are kind words. Have you been drinking?
No, just the coffee. But I appreciate you sitting down here and giving me the opportunity to record this episode. Like I said, almost 2 hours and 50 minutes.
So again,
but it's fun.
I'll buy the bottle of whiskey the next time
it didn't feel like 3 hours.
No, oddly, it didn't. So if it's afternoon, we should be sitting here with beers and whiskey by now.
And with that, we're out.